Yep. I think so. Good. Okay, everybody. I think everybody's ready. Good to see everybody in person tonight. It's been a couple weeks since we've been virtual, but glad to have everybody back, and more importantly, glad the numbers are going down. So thanks to everybody in their efforts to keep the numbers down. We do appreciate everybody's attention to that. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If Councilman Pentelope.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, yes. And then just for announcement purposes, this is the Monday, March 7th workshop meeting of the Wethersfield Town Council. And we just did the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Sue, would you do us the honor for the attendance tonight?
Councilor Biggs?
Present.
Councilor Forrest?
Present.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Lesser?
Here.
Councilor O'Connor?
Here.
Councilor Pelletier?
Here.
Councilor Pentelope?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarello?
Here.
Mayor Rell?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We're going to start off today. We have two workshop items. I do see Erica here and Bonnie. Thank you. I tried my best to read as much of that report as possible. A lot of graphs, a lot of charts, but plenty of information for us. So we do appreciate that. This would be the 2021 Youth Voices Count survey results, and I did introduce Erica. So please come on up, bring up your team as well. I do see some folks from the Youth Advisory Board are here tonight as well. So we do appreciate the service that you guys have provided as well. I was going to say, Felix, you got the touch. If you can do it all in one. This is usually every presentation. This one's working. This one's coming on. You guys got that one as well?
Okay. You good with me to start? Okay. So, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Town Council members, and Town Manager. My name is Erica Texera. I'm the Assistant Director of Social, Youth, and Senior Services for the Town of Wethersfield. I'm also joined here tonight by Director Kathy Bagley, Allison Nadeau, the new Prevention Coordinator that was hired through our Drug-Free Communities grant, members of our Youth Advisory Board and We Hope Coalition, as well as Bonnie Smith, our Youth Voices Count Survey Consultant. We come before you tonight to share the results and key findings from the confidential Youth Voices Count survey that was administered online this past November and December to all 7th through 12th graders that attend Silas Dean Middle School and Wethersfield High School. A similar survey was also administered in both 2016 and 2019. By conducting this survey, Social and Youth Services was looking to solicit student input and perspective regarding substance use and at-risk behaviors. The data will be used to best guide future planning, provide prevention programs, and promote overall community awareness. We appreciate you allowing us to come here tonight and share this important data. We also would like to say a special thank you to the Board of Education, school staff, the Youth Advisory Board, We Hope Coalition, Town Council Liaison, Mary Pelletier. They've all been extremely supportive throughout the entire process. I'll turn it over to our Prevention Coordinator, Allison, and she'll be sharing some additional information regarding our Drug-Free Communities grant and the coalition work. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and members of Town Council. My name is Allison Nadeau, and I'm the Prevention Coordinator for the Town of Wethersfield Social and Youth Services Department. As Erica stated, I was hired under the Drug-Free Communities Grant. My job is to facilitate the Wethersfield Helping Others Through Prevention and Education Coalition, also known as We Hope, and work directly with the Youth Advisory Board. The Drug-Free Communities Grant financially supports the biannual assessment that we will be going over this evening. It also supports the We Hope Coalition. The We Hope's mission is to be a community coalition dedicated to engaging and mobilizing youth, parents, and community members to reduce youth alcohol use and drug use and to create a safe and healthy community. If you're interested in joining our efforts or learning more about our work, please feel free to contact me. Also, we just made our Facebook page live as well as our website. So, thank you. Also, please enjoy the swag on your table. And here's Bonnie Smith.
Stress balls come in handy at budget time.
I don't think we'll need the stress balls tonight, I hope. Hi, everybody, I'm Bonnie Smith. I know some of you from the community because I happen to be a resident, have kids in the schools here as well, and I'm providing you with survey results. I was initially told we had a little more time, so I'm going to talk quickly and skip several slides. So you heard from Erica that this survey occurred in fall 2021, grades 7 through 12. It's an anonymous survey tool, and students are on their own allowed to opt out if they choose not to participate. I wanted to point out in the analysis of our full report, which you may have access to in a packet or in another way this evening, there are subgroup analyses by population according to race, ethnicity, biological sex, and gender identity. That intent is so that we can statistically determine if there are differences in kids' behaviors by those categories, allowing for youth services and other groups to implement programming targeting those subpopulations that may be at increased risk. The response rate for this survey was about 88%. The prior survey process was 91. Excellent, excellent response rates, and kudos to the partners of the school system for these efforts. I won't go over the race, ethnicity in detail. You've seen it in your packet, but I do want to point out, in terms of gender identity, this year we saw a pretty intense increase in those identifying as non-binary, transgender, or I'm not sure right now, up to 6% of the sample population. Prior year it was about 3%. I'm going to skip right to social media, assets and consequences, and I'm just going to point out that, interestingly, 51% of youth report feeling better about themselves as a result of social media use, and 32% report feeling worse about themselves. I wanted to highlight that here because it may be related to some other items in the survey tonight. Moving on to bullying frequency. These data look very similar to the 2019 report. 57% of students have never been bullied, which is good news. Of course, we want to see that higher than it is, but it's still good news. And then of more concern is the very small group in the middle school, 1.3%, that are bullied almost every day, 21 days or more. That accounts for 7 students, but that's a pretty rough place to be if you're one of those 7 students. Looking at anxiety, a big topic today coming hopefully out of the pandemic. We can see here that 27% of students this year reported almost always or always feeling anxious in the past year. In 2019, that was 20%. So certainly we can assume that pandemics had some emotional health consequences on our students. Looking at other emotional health indicators, you can see self-harm, thoughts of self-harm, physical abuse from an intimate partner, feeling sad or hopeless 2 or more weeks in a row, which is more of what I would call that clinical indicator, although this is not diagnostic, and then considering suicide in the past year. I'm going to focus here on suicide first, noting that I'm going through my own notes too fast and can't tell you what I'm going to focus on. Hold on. Looking at suicide, we have seen an increase in considering suicide since 2019. We have 9.5% of 7th through 12th graders today reporting having considered suicide in the past year, which comes out to 165 youth, which is a really high number, thinking about it couple classrooms with 30 kids. That's a lot of students. 13.2% had considered or had self-harmed, and 21% were sad or hopeless 2 weeks or more in a row, which is an increase from what we saw in our last assessment. Next, we're going to look at substance use. This is lifetime substances. Have you ever used this thing in your life is somewhat how it's phrased in the survey. The number one substance used by youth in their lifetime is alcohol, followed by marijuana, then vaping nicotine. All of these have reduced since 2019, with the exception of vaping nicotine at the high school level. Now we're going to look at what we call risk factors. We always want to see these high. Perception of harm of using these substances, or how harmful do you think it would be for you to use these things regularly? So these are pretty much the same, with the exception of marijuana being quite low. We want to see it high. Perception of risk related to RX, or non-medical use of prescription drugs, is the highest that we see here, which is good news. Access, so that's like, where do you get it, or how easy is it to get it? Alcohol is perceived by youth to be the easiest to access of all the substances. More easy than marijuana, certainly, but harder than 2019, so that's good news. Looking at where substances are acquired by those who have used substances. So we're only asking this of kids who've reported any substance use. Vaping materials, alcohol, and marijuana most frequently are accessed by peers. I'm giving you the high level so we can keep it moving. Looking at where substances are used most often, vaping products, alcohol, and marijuana are most frequently used with peers. So not shocking. They get it from peers, they use it from peers, with the exception here of prescription drugs being used at home alone. Looking at driving under the influence, overall we see less driving under the influence than we did in 2019. This is of 11th and 12th graders, of course, who are eligible to drive. Alcohol is less frequently the substance of choice when driving. Actually 2 times more so than marijuana. When we report on the data, we look at all the indicators in the survey, and we do a significance test statistically against lifetime substance use as its own category. So all kids who've used substances, we see if there's a difference in any other reportable indicators in the survey. And I'm going to highlight a few here. So middle school and high school youth who've used any substances in their lifetime are more likely to report home or family life as a source of anxiety, have thoughts of self-harm and have acted on them, and report having more family substance use problems. Looking at high school students who have used any substance in their lifetime alone, they're more likely to have been bullied in the past 30 days, experienced anxiety in the past year, and have had sex under the influence of drugs or alcohol. This is just a quick chart of trend. I told you that all substances are generally down, which is true. There's some items we can't compare directly because there's some changes made in the tool, but overall we see great reduction, 30% so for marijuana specifically, which is something I know we're all keeping an eye on given the current environment around marijuana. Looking at lifetime other substance use, this is substances that we know are not frequently used by youth, but we like to keep track of and just look at lifetime measures. Inhalants are one that are kind of at the upper end here. We kind of hone in on that because that's one that if someone makes a mistake by using an inhalant can be deadly the first time. CBD we're tracking because we don't really have great data on what that might be connected to in terms of youth behavior. It's not necessarily a bad thing, we're just keeping an eye. I like to point out heroin and fentanyl, given the opioid epidemic. You see here that 0.2% of students had used heroin or fentanyl in their lifetime, which is 3 students overall. Next, we're going to talk about sexual behaviors. 13% of students had sexual intercourse or oral sex in their lifetime. 84% of students had not had either. The most common age of initiation for sexual intercourse is age 16. For oral sex, that age is 15. 50% of students report not talking to their parent or guardian about delaying having sexual intercourse, birth control, risks of STIs, and pregnancy. Looking at the prevention of STIs and pregnancy, 55% of students who have had sexual intercourse or oral sex report that they always or almost always use something to prevent an STI. 66% report preventing pregnancy, almost always or always. The barriers reported to using these preventative measures for girls stands out. They're worried that their parents will find out. And generally speaking, being embarrassed to buy the product or the cost. Lastly, we're going to touch upon the students' perception of the COVID-19 impact on their well-being. 54% of students report being a little or a lot more anxious in this time. 46% report being a little or a lot more sad or depressed. And 47% report being a lot or a little bit more lonely. Looking at substance use, which is really essential to understanding those 30-day use rates, which are key to tracking certain indicators, certainly related to the grant, but in program planning in general. Most students report for substances that there's no change to their behavior in this time period. However, the second most common choice is there's a lot less use. So we know that all substance use is down. That's great news, but we can't hold on to the fact that that will remain true as life is becoming more and more wonderfully normal. There's consequence to normalcy. More substances here as well. We wanted to check in on access to substances to learn a little bit more about what that would be, and you can see similar pattern. No change in terms of access to alcohol or other drugs, or a lot less access. Real quick, we did our first pilot of toxic stress questions. The first bar you see is about seeing or being a victim of violence in the community, neighborhood, or school. 30% of students reported yes to that. 30% report having experienced discrimination. 6% report having had problems with housing. And 9% report that there's food insecurity in their home. And lastly, 56% of students would like to see the survey data. And that is that. Thanks for listening to it all. It's a lot of numbers.
Great, thank you, Bonnie.
Sure.
I'll open up the floor to some questions. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Let's go back to the considering suicide number, which I
Sure.
found staggering.
Yep.
Do you have any data about the rest of, other areas, the rest of the country? Or is this something that's,
So it's not
specific to Wethersfield or?
It's not specific to Wethersfield. That's a great question. Unfortunately, our most recent national and state data are from 2019. So they're pre-pandemic conditions. So we look at what we call the YRBSS, the Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System, which is administered here in Connecticut to a select group of schools by the Department of Public Health every 2 years. The last 2019 survey report, I think in terms of suicidality, was 15% of students. So this is not, let me go back to it right here. This is not off the charts, certainly, what we see here, but it's something to pay attention to. 165 kids is a lot.
Has it been that high going back, 10 years, 20 years? Or
I can't
is there
speak to 10 to 20 years, no, but the YRBS, that youth survey data that's state and national, the range has been, I believe, around that 10 to 16 or 17% for some time, which is a wide range.
And then, just lastly, I guess the accuracy of the responses to, people in this age group, tend to take it as not serious and
Sure. Well-
maybe over embellish the results?
Well, here's what I always respond to about that question. So as human beings, we underreport always, adults, children, et cetera, what we may not feel comfortable about. So that could be our substance use, that could be our mental health, our family situations. We often underreport. That being said, part of our data analysis and cleaning process is if we see a student who has said that they've done everything and are having the most terrible time of their life across the board, they're eliminated from the survey sample. Particularly substance use is the driver of that. We know if you say you've done every drug ever, that's probably just you going through the survey, giving false response. So there's no perfect tool, but we know that there's a consistent way that youth generally respond to both national tools and local tools.
And then lastly, was this survey given out in the classroom?
Online.
You had this fantastic, rate of completion.
I think there's a number of factors that go into that fantastic rate. One being that Allison worked with community partners to have an instructional video created to hopefully make youth feel more comfortable and believe that there is true anonymity, because there is. My own kids took the survey. I can't tell you what their response was. In addition, having the schools partner and really implement that survey in a super strategic way where the technology is nice and clean and they access a link after they look at the video, it's huge.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll go to Councilman Lesser and then to Councilman Pentelow.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Bonnie. Thank you. That was a really great and informative presentation. I have a comment and then a couple questions. I have a junior in high school, and she took this survey, and she found it quite comprehensive, and I think that this information is really valuable, and that leads me into the two questions I have. One is, and this may be for Eric or anyone, what did you summarize as the most significant findings? What did you find as most important? And then secondary, and again, this may be for Erica, what kind of different things will we be implementing to deal with some of the most significant? I agree with Tom. What jumped out at me was the number of young people considering suicide, 165, but there may have been more significant findings. So what you found is most significant, and maybe some things that we're going to be doing to counteract them.
I can speak to what I found as significant. I think Erica and Allison may have different perspectives. For me, the mental health, exactly what you're saying, that anxiety, considering suicide, self-harm, all those pieces. And then my personal favorite part of our analysis is when we look at lifetime substance use and those risk factors like anxiety, depression, et cetera. Those stood out to me. It's not abnormal to Wethersfield. We do this in many different school districts. We're seeing it significantly across the board. But I'd like Erica to comment because her perception as a town person is very different, I'm sure.
I would agree with what Bonnie stated. The mental health, behavioral health is definitely on the top of our list, something to look at, and I think we're all well aware of that. We've had many discussions as a group, so we will be working with that. We really want to focus on perception of use, also how students are perceiving their friends using, and also access to use and where are they using, because we would like to focus in on some of those areas. We are going to be using our Youth Advisory Board, We Hope Coalition, to really hone in on this data. We would like to start accessing focus groups with different sectors of the community, as well as students. We really want students to be part of these small focus groups so we can really dive deep and get more of that detailed information of what's going on and what do we need to bring to Wethersfield in terms of presenters, trainings, and all that different information.
That is great. We know in my daughter's friend group many children who are suffering from depression, anxiety, a lot of social emotional learning issues, and this is really important, the work you're doing in the focus group. So thank you for all this. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Pentelow.
Yeah, no, I just had a quick question about the study in general. So these numbers were conducted pre-pandemic, so it's from 2019?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
the
this is
last,
before the kids went back to, or were,
so today's is 2021.
Okay.
And then 2 years prior, 2019 was what we're looking at in terms of our trend.
okay.
And then 2016 prior, but we didn't present 2016 data today at
Okay,
all.
so is it, I mean, did you see anything in kind of correlation with the kids being home, like kind of isolated a little bit more? Did you see anxiety go up more? Did you see, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to.
no, I think that's where we literally were able to ask the kids, in this time, did you have more anxiety? Did you have more depression? And that's what you see at the end here. So, and I may not have touched upon this. So right here, you'll see that there's no change for most kids reporting in terms of anxiety, not most even, a lot of kids, depression and loneliness. But then that a little more group, that's significant.
Okay.
And like we sort of touched upon, substance use rates went down, but these mental health indicators went up.
Yeah.
So being isolated at home, et cetera, less access to peers and substances, but also less access to social supports from peers and perhaps even within the school district or the community.
Okay, and then the next one will be what, 2023?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. So it would be kind of interesting to see, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then post how kids are adjusting. So that's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman O'Connor.
Thank you for this data. It is actually fascinating. I did have a question that parallels what Councilor Pennell had said, is it didn't surprise me to see the difference between 2019 and 2021 as far as the substance abuse, the alcohol, and the drug usage going down. I think a lot of his kids had nowhere to go. They didn't have, it wasn't like they were going to parties because everybody was shutting things down. And so to me, that would seem like, and again, an outsider looking in, it would seem like that would make sense. I think my question, though, is what are you anticipating is going to happen when you do this survey again? And there is in the schools, and teachers will tell you this huge bounce back effect that's happening when these kids finally got in, and a lot of these kids are out of control. The number of disciplinary actions and things, those are going through the roof, and generally a lot of times that also dovetails into substance abuse and kids, being free for the first time. And so my question is, what are you anticipating is going to happen? And then the second question is, do you have plans to address that? What are you looking for the town to do? What, how are you going to try to preempt that and all of that? And I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
You go ahead. Okay.
So I'm glad that you asked, because we have started to get back into the schools regularly, talking to administrators. Attendance, truancy, that is a huge indicator of things that are going on in these homes. So a lot of times we're seeing them come down through the Juvenile Review Board. We're also seeing that just the increase of lack of school attendance and just the behavior issues. So we're trying to bring them up and discuss them and wrap resources around the family and the youth as soon as possible. We all know that we need additional resources. I think that's key in terms of staffing is very appropriate for the timing right now. As children start to get back, you start getting back into the normal. Some of them just don't know how to be out in the world again, and don't realize what's out there and what they can use as a coping mechanism, which could be very dangerous. So we're really trying to work with the school systems to hone in on it as soon as possible.
But just to follow that, if you had a crystal ball, are you anticipating there's going to be a huge spike?
We're already seeing a huge spike in attendance and lack of motivation with the youth in school in terms of just the classwork, and we can see the anxiety and the depression because a lot of students are needing that extra attention from the school guidance counselors, the social workers, the nurse. So we're already seeing
Have
that.
you been able to approach the Board of Ed or the town for resources, and have they been supportive? Or
We definitely have started discussions with funding, what the needs are, what we're seeing as needs, with the police department. How can we best assist and use, some funds that might be coming down the pike to address some of these issues as we see fit. We're hoping that the state might allow through like the youth service bureaus and the Department of Education, allow for extra funding through grants, which will also be a tremendous help.
Thank you.
Did you want to add?
No, my comment would be, we should anticipate some sort of rebound effect in terms of 30-day substance use. We hope that these prevention efforts that are being considered and planned and implemented will protect against that a bit, but I would anticipate that the data 2 years from now won't be lower, that's for sure, and may indeed be a bit higher.
My name is Barbara Rue. I'm a member of the Youth Service Advisory Board, but what the perspective I want to bring is that of having practiced in the child protection section of the juvenile court for 45 years. We are seeing an enormous spike in children in emergency rooms. They're being bounced out. The last commissioner of the department, who had this theory that every child deserves a home, a family, closed down all kinds of community resources, all kinds of treatment centers. And so we've got kids that are a mess. If you've read the Hartford Current, which I know a lot of people don't read, but they did have some excellent coverage on the Children's Medical Center have storing kids in the emergency room. I've had some very difficult children, not from Wethersfield, on my caseload, who bounce in and out of the emergency room for psych reasons repeatedly, getting them into the Institute of Living, which does have a program, getting them into Solnit North and South, which are the child psychiatry hospital, getting them into Yale. It's almost impossible. So be aware that at the local level, we're going to have to step up because the state has totally screwed it up.
Well, just to follow on that, the legislature is working this year, as you know, I'm sure everybody who's presented knows, it is a priority for both the House and the Senate. I know Speaker Ritter is working on this. It is a priority. I did read all those stories in the Hartford Current, and yeah, emergency rooms across the state saw an influx of kids, definitely at the end of the summer, but as actually when school was starting and it was back in person, was when they were coming in. I had just a couple questions, and thank you very much for this presentation. I mean, it's not only eye-opening, but it's forcing me to lock my kids in their bedrooms for the remainder of their teens, and I only have one teenager right now. But self-harm, I had a question with self-harm. Any tie to social media with that at all?
Well, that's a great question. I have not gotten that question before. Congratulations, Mr. L. I can't say. I mean, I'd like to make some sort of assumptions, but in terms of data, I can't tell you that what we see here is a relationship to social media use or messaging.
Okay. And then I'm looking at the slide, and I don't know if you had it up there, but it's the past month use Wethersfield trend data. Mm-hmm. And it's alcohol, binge drinking, cigarettes, e-cigarettes. And I know you had mentioned that due to the pandemic, you know, a lot of these, you know, tailed off between 16, 19, and then, of course, in 21. Yes, that one right there. Thank you. They raised the age for cigarettes to 21. Yeah. Does that have a factor in this at all? And please excuse me, I think they did it to vaping as well. And I can't remember if that passed last year or if it was...
I don't remember the timing of Tobacco 21 either, and if anyone else does, let us know. But I mean, we know that data supports raising the age, increasing price as a deterrent to purchasing for both youth and adults. So we can make the assumption that that may have impacted usage. I also know social norms around vaping have changed. When vaping first started, it was very popular, it was big on social media, we know that. And then suddenly a lot of people were getting sick, and it seemed to lose popularity, thankfully, quickly. And of course, there's those that remain that are addicted. So Tobacco 21, I'm sure, was a factor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but marijuana, which has been illegal up until, you know, June or July of last year, sorry. I mean, that's the highest number for 16, but it trends the same way as alcohol. And of course, everybody knows that alcohol is illegal under 21, and it has been for 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. They get it from their peers. I mean, is it readily available in school? I mean, do they get it through their peers at school, or do they get it through classmates that are older outside of school? Do we
So
know?
that's a great connection to the focus groups that Erica and Allison hope to implement, because that's the kind of questions that would be asked, to kind of drill down more about access and location of use to help guide a strategic plan that exists but that can be modified.
Okay.
I just wanted to briefly respond to that. So I hold the We Hope Youth part of the coalition, and one of the activities that we've been really working on is community mapping. So we have a large map of Wethersfield, and we kind of go through and pinpoint resources that the youth feel like they have, and then areas where they feel like it's riskier situations or there's higher use of drugs, and kind of just mapping out what Wethersfield looks like in the youth perspective. And there was a lot of conversation that was had within these groups, kind of discussing how they've seen a lot of like specific groups where it's like a group of friends that are like able to sell marijuana within the high school. And that was like the anecdotal data that I got from the youth who participated, and said that they see it within their like peers.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Councilman Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple questions about the process and the data that we're seeing here. The first one is, while reading through a bunch of the questions, I had some of them where I was interpreting 2 or 3 different variations of what the question was asking. So a question might be, are you considering suicide? And considering it without a definition, could think like, am I thinking about taking an affirmative step, even though you're not doing it, but I'm thinking about taking an affirmative step, versus am I thinking conceptually about understanding suicide? Not necessarily for me, but I have thought of suicide. It may have come up in a class. So you could answer that in a couple of different ways, where when we look at it with the data, we're sitting here being concerned about a portion of our population, and I'm sure that there is, considering taking an affirmative step toward this act. But I'm not sure that that question necessarily got at that, if there's multiple ways in which the question could be interpreted. And I found, as I was going through the packet earlier today, and then even today, and not all questions, but some of the questions, that there was that sort of multiple meaning, or what do you really mean by this?
Sure.
So how do you interpret that data when you could have multiple meanings of a lot of the questions, or at least some of the questions?
Well, the best response I have for that is that the survey tool was developed out of tested, validated instruments. So whenever we bring in a new question, not that it couldn't be interpreted a number of ways, that's absolutely possible. But we're using adaptations of tools that are vetted by the state government and CDC, so we can do some comparison to that, as well as know that the way questions are asked are consistent and valid. Not to say they can't be interpreted differently. And it also depends, if you looked at the full report or the actual survey questions, is that what you were reviewing?
Well, I was seeing a lot of graphs.
So, okay, that's a different thing. So in the actual survey tool, the questions have a lot of little definitions or examples included in them. So when we talk about vaping, for example, we list a whole bunch of different vape products. When we talk about, I can't recall off the top of my head how we describe suicide. When we talk about bullying, there's a definition as well.
Yeah.
So,
Another one I saw.
yeah,
Right.
yep, there's the whole definition. Gambling is the same thing. We define what gambling means within the survey tool.
I mean, my kids would say, like, we play cards at night, right? Like, well, maybe I'm gambling because I'm playing cards, but I don't know
If, by the survey definition, if you're playing a game of chance with uncertain outcomes for money or other goods, it could be gambling.
we do play for Hershey Kisses, so.
There you go.
Spin the dreidel, there's lots of gambling, I guess it happens at our house.
Yeah. I mean, many students receive scratch-off tickets as gifts.
Right.
That's gambling. Not to say that there's something wrong if it's being done legally. It's just the sense of gambling can be related to other risky behaviors, and certainly we're changing the environment around gambling with our legislation.
On a related note, maybe not related to the wording, but thank you for helping me understand a little
Sure.
bit more. Two things sort of struck me just as the process. One is that it wasn't randomized,
No.
and there's also an opt-out.
Yes.
So the opt-out portion just sort of begs the question, like, is there self-determination of opting out? Like, if I am maybe not the one that fills out the whole right side of the sheet, or maybe the person that actually does want to fill out the whole right side of the sheet, like, done all these drugs and all these things, and, well, I'm not answering this. Or I certainly saw some of those, like DUI and the rest of it, which is just implicating, like, prison.
Sure.
And, like, I don't want to answer that, right? So
Just, it's similar to the other question about valid response, which is
Yeah.
that we always know there's an underreport. We also know that kids who use heroin regularly are probably not in school the day of the survey, for example. So there's a bias, again, that way. And we have to have opt-out because that's ethical, right? We don't want to put a student in any position where they feel compelled to have to participate in some sort of self-report process. And parents have the right to an active consent or passive declination. So I'm going to say there's always an underreport in any survey process again. We know that.
Is there a way to statistically normalize that or account for the paradigm in which it's given?
I am not actually the statistician. I can't think of a way necessarily in my work that I would know how to do that, normalize, if you will.
Right.
We just know that we can compare to other similar tools, which are, the methodology is the same. So if there's underreport in one tool, there's underreport in our tool, and that's consistent.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Sure.
You're in charge.
Anyone have anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Derek, right? Derek's going to speak about Old Wethersfield safety improvements.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council. As stated, my name is Derek Reger. I am the town engineer. I'm here tonight to present to you a project that's been around for a little while. We are moving forward with our design and planning for construction this year, so I wanted to come in and just talk to you a little bit about it. Some of you may not be that familiar with it. This is related to planned safety improvements in Old Wethersfield. In 2017, the town applied for community connectivity grant funding from the state. We were awarded $393,000 out of a maximum of $400,000 for this particular funding. The initial project we had submitted included a number of areas in town. Some projects were larger, some were smaller, all in Old Wethersfield and generally around pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements. What's happened over the years with just increase with inflation and also due to the pandemic, costs have gone up. So where we are now is we are consolidating some of the projects and limiting it to those projects that were the most critical and the most expensive to get done. So with that, we've had to scale it back a little bit. One of the other things that drove up the cost is at these locations, I'm going to show you the intersections, the scope of work has increased. At being out there, we decided to do some additional improvements. We have met with the state. They are happy with the project as it is. It's in the final design stage right now. The three locations we're focusing on the most are the intersections of Main Street and Hartford Avenue, Main Street and State Street, and Garden Street and Knott Street. So with that, so to let you know, so whatever projects that we had in the original application that aren't right now planned to be done, just because we don't have enough funding. I anticipate doing them in the future using other funds. Some of them are small enough, we may be able to find ways to do it with existing funding. Others, there might be other opportunities for state funds that we can use to get them done. So we're not forgetting about them, but what we're focusing on is what's most critical. So what you're looking at here is just a map of Old Wethersfield. North is to the top of the sheet. This is Main Street running north-south. This is the Hartford Avenue intersection, Main Street intersection, and then the other location we'll talk about is over here near Standish Park at the intersection of Garden Street and Knott Street. So this is just the existing layout right now for Hartford Avenue and Main Street. This is oriented with north to the right. So this is Main Street coming across, and this is Hartford Avenue going up to the top of the sheet. As you can see, everyone's been through this intersection. There's a lot of pavement out there. We have some very long pedestrian crossings. We have a situation with the sidewalks on the west side of the road being set back so far from the road because the right-of-way is so far back that we often have people crossing the street here where the sidewalks are, crossing Hartford Avenue, which is behind the stop bar and creates a safety situation. Also, if you're traveling in the northbound direction, there's no stop sign, where there are stop signs in the other two directions, which can be very confusing for drivers and pedestrians and bicyclists alike. In addition to just the intersection, just very large, so it leaves a lot of room for people to drive around. There are no shoulder lines. So what we're looking at is what you see here on the next plan. What you see in green in the different areas really is areas that are currently pavement that we are going to be shifting to grass. So we're going to be essentially just taking out existing pavement where we can to try and tighten up the radii, make the pedestrian crossings much shorter than they are. On the west side of the intersection here, that's just what we're doing, some tightening up. As you can see, we have some new brick sidewalks that we're going to bring down to the pedestrian crossing, which has been shifted a little bit to the west as much as we could. The idea with these two sidewalk connections is to just make it easier for pedestrians to get down to the crossing where we want them to cross, which is at the intersection and not back here at the right-of-way where the existing sidewalk is. So we did go to planning and zoning last week. We had some discussions about how to prevent people from continuing to do that, and there's some options where we could beef up the signage, maybe do some landscaping, just make it easier for people just to come and cross where we want them to cross. This plan also creates another 10 to 12 additional parking spaces. I say 10 to 12 because right now on the east side of the intersection, it's all parallel parking. There isn't striped, so it's hard to gauge exactly how many vehicles can get in there. But with this layout, we're looking at adding some spaces. On the east side, we're adding one just south of the intersection and then another 4 immediately south of it, so there's 5 there. All this angled parking you see on the east side to the north of Hartford Avenue is new angled parking. That's where we have our parallel parking right now. So it'd be very consistent with what we have in the area, it'd be consistent with what we have on the west side of the road. We're looking at extending a few parking spaces to the north here on the west side of the road.
Derek, before you jump ahead real quick, I think the deputy mayor had one question on this slide.
I want to interrupt.
Sure.
Are you planning to remove the sidewalks that exist right now to force people to use the new angled sidewalks? Or are you going to leave them?
Well, we were going to leave them as is. I think part of the problem, if you see how geometrically it is, the gray you see here are the sidewalks. I mean, you got to come and take a 90-degree turn, then another 90, even more than that on this other side of the road. So, we're going to kind of make a little triangle area in there that, there could be benches or there could be other things, but yeah, the intent was to leave them there. So if you're walking up or down Hartford Avenue, you could walk straight to the corner.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing we're showing here, I didn't mention it, over here to the south side or south of the intersection, left side of your screen, we're looking at putting a couple bump outs there, which is costing a few spaces, but it'll give us a mid-block crossing here with the bump outs being much shorter. In addition to that, we're also looking at doing 10-foot travel lanes, so we're going to revise where the double yellow lines are to make them align a little bit better, put shoulder lines in, so we have 10-foot travel lanes, which generally slows traffic This will also provide a separation between vehicles and bicyclists that are traveling through the area. Okay, so with this, I'll move ahead to the next intersection, which is further.
It's possible to talk on this slide here?
Sure.
Just too far?
Sure.
Derek, has there been a consideration for a roundabout at this particular location and probably a couple of the others? Because it seems like it would be very beneficial. It's traffic calming. It's civic engaging. You can put statue in the middle with some trees, welcome to Wethersfield, and it would keep your line at the top where everyone wants to cross. And it's great traffic move. It's considered one of the best traffic movers around, and it stops a lot of crashes.
Yeah, I'm not adverse to that. My understanding is no, I don't believe that that was ever discussed for this intersection. I know it had been discussed for the intersection to the south at Main and March and Church. And from my understanding, that was not looked on favorably by the town. That one certainly has a lot more traffic volume. It would make sense. Here, I mean, it could be done too, but if I was going to look at one, that probably would have been the first intersection we would have evaluated for it. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think we've had that conversation. It wasn't something that was suggested, and being that it was, I guess, decided against for the intersection to the south, was another reason why we weren't really pursuing it here.
Could we consider it for this one?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to get the project built this year because it's been since 2017. That would take we'd have to step back and do quite a bit of public engagement if we were going to look at that alternate at this
I
point.
think in these high civic areas where you can get a lot of beautification and a lot of great traffic flow and traffic calming, and I've seen it done in other communities with tremendous success. Just came back from, not just, but last year came back from Arizona and Sedona. They've got tons more traffic than we do, and they manage it with style, and it looks tremendous for their community, along with they've got biking out there, just like we were anticipating here. And there's a lot of options for beautification along the corridor. So I would hope that you would reconsider that particular option, as I've talked to transportation people, and they say it's a great way to move traffic.
Yeah, it has its uses. I'll speak with the manager about it. We did hold public information hearings on these plans back in April of last year and got feedback from the public. So there were opportunities for the public to voice that if that's something they were looking for. Again, it's something we could look at for this intersection.
Councilwoman Pelletier?
I just want to say I strongly object to a traffic circle here, and I strongly disagree with Councilor Forrest on this. This is a few blocks from my house, and I walk this way multiple times a week. It is a heavily pedestrian area, as you know, and as you said, you've already done the studies. The design is ready, and the work's ready to be done. I am so pleased to see you intending to have it always stop, because that is by far safer for pedestrians. And if they were just circling around and you're trying to just, cross the road, there's so many pedestrians in that area, and I don't think that it warrants it with the amount of car traffic. And I love the design that you have. I love that you're adding the parking spaces too, because I think we need it down there. But I just want to say, I think it would, as someone who lives in this area and travels it frequently, and seeing all the strollers and the kids, I think having a traffic circle where none of the cars are stopping is dangerous. I like the design, and I would say don't even consider a traffic circle. It's my neighborhood, so I know it well.
Well, the other thing to consider is funding. I stressed we have just under $400,000. The cost of that would be significantly more, where maybe we'd have enough to do this intersection a little bit more, but we probably would not be doing the magnitude of work that we were planning to do, just based on cost.
And would we do a public education on I guess it's a three-way stop, let folks know?
Yeah, usually when there's new traffic control signage like that, we'll put some advanced signs in temporarily, letting them know. We did that when we did the railroad crossings. We had a new stop signs a few years back to all of them and had some, warnings up. And so, yeah, we'll do that as well as, making it public knowledge to the best we can that that's going to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes. Just, can you confirm, Derek, will this now become a three-way stop?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions before I move on? Okay. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the intersection to the north. This is Main Street still going left to right across your page. State Street here extending to the north. This is Howard Avenue extending down to the bottom of the page. So everyone's familiar with this as well. What we have is we have two-way traffic on all sides of the island. The island is rather small. We have a lot of traffic coming to and from DMV. The way it is right now, it's a yield sign as you travel eastbound on State Street coming down to Main. It's just a yield. If you're going northbound heading to DMV, there's really nothing to slow you down. People drive pretty fast around the corner. I get a lot of complaints about that. Similar to the situation we have at Main and Hartford Avenue, the sidewalks are quite a ways back from the road. That's where the crosswalk is striped right now. It makes it very difficult to see pedestrians in the crosswalk as you're approaching the intersection from Main Street, as well as you can see it extends just on the west side of the existing island, so there's no real safety. If you get halfway across the road, you've crossed 2 lanes, now you got to cross another 2 lanes, and you're kind of left out without any refuge. So safety concerns with respect to that. Similar to the other intersection, you can see there's a lot of gray area, just a lot of excess pavement that we could certainly trim down and make the intersection tighter and safer. So what we're looking at in general here is we want to increase the size of the island. So you can see here the green, it's probably 50% larger than it is now. The big change with this is we're looking at doing one-way traffic on either side of the island. So it would be, as you approach Main Street from State Street heading eastbound, it would be one way to a stop sign instead of a yield. If you're traveling north on Main Street and taking a left onto State Street, you would have to drive past the island and then take a left, which is a little more than a 90-degree turn and continue. A couple of reasons for that. One is to help slow the traffic. I mean, if they're going to DMV, that's going to be a much slower movement than what they have now, which is kind of like an on-ramp to a highway. It also allows us to shorten the pedestrian crossing so that you're crossing 1 lane instead of 4 going across the road. Some other things we're looking at doing, you can see a lot of green on either corner, just looking to really get rid of as much pavement as we can and tighten things up. On the east side of the road near Howard Avenue right now, we have a crosswalk here that doesn't connect to any sidewalk. It goes from the edge of Howard Avenue right to a curb. People either have to walk across the grass or up someone's private driveway in order to get there. So we're going to eliminate this altogether, move it to the south side of the intersection with a bump out on the east side of the road to also narrow that crossing. This includes a couple of concrete pads for bus stops. There are 2 bus stops out here in the intersection. One's on the north side of the intersection in this vicinity, and one's on the south side in this area. So we've been talking with CT Transit about all these layouts because they often have bus stops in the area. They had requested that because there really is nowhere for people to stand out here, and while we were at the intersection, we're looking to do that. You could see on the north side it's wider than it is on the south side. That's really to accommodate tractor trailer movement and fire trucks. It's not needed for most vehicles, but on the larger vehicles, in order to make that type of turn, they need extra space. So we're widening this area out to, rather than being a 5 or 6 foot shoulder, it's 11 feet in here, but it's going to also dual as the bus stop, so the buses can pull in there too, which gets them out of the travel way, and then they can continue up State Street to get back into it.
So with a bus parked there, Derek, do you have enough room for a fire truck?
Yeah, I mean, I think fire truck, yes. I mean, if a tractor trailer happened to come, my understanding from CT Transit, this is not one of their layover locations where they sit for extended periods of time. It's just a stop and a go if they have anybody that needs to get off or on. So I think, that'll work that'll work fine. The other thing with this, similar to Hartford Avenue, we're going to eliminate the existing crosswalk where it is, move it down here to the edge of Main Street where there's better visibility. It's also located for the eastbound direction on State Street. It'll be located on the correct side of the stop bar. With that, obviously we have to also make some connections down here, so we're trying to, we're going to bring some concrete sidewalk down and try to make it as easy as we can. We really want to prevent people from trying to cross at this location. That's the
quick,
major. Yeah.
Derek, on the southwest side of that intersection, if I remember correctly, that sidewalk is like large slate slabs. Would you, and I don't know if it's connected on State Street going west and continues going south on Main Street, I guess you wouldn't have to put new sidewalk on that corner, correct, where that new yellow is, that's existing?
What you see, yeah, I didn't explain that. The yellow is what we're looking at for new concrete. Right now, this walk as you approach State Street drops off a lot, and there's just, it just really empties out into the road, and it's really too low. It'll end up below our curb line, and therefore it'll be ponding water. So the slate you're referring to is in this area. I think we may be impacting one or two of those slate slabs, but we try to avoid them. I know we are going to be reaching out to all the abutters soon with the plan to make them aware of what it is before it goes out to bid. But what you see in yellow is what we're looking at. So we are looking at some new sidewalk around that corner, just to a point where I think this is plans a week old, so it's been cut back a little bit. We don't need to go quite as far. We found some good walk really right at the corner, so we're just going to turn the corner at a higher grade and tie into what's there now.
Gotcha. Okay.
The other thing here, just to mention, is also 10-foot travel lanes. That was one of the projects for the application we submitted, was to pretty much hold narrower travel lanes all the way from Fire Station up to Howard Street, River Road here. So I think what we'll do is, it's noted on here that it's going to be done by the town. I don't want to have little segments of it. So once these projects are done, we'll stripe some shoulders, all the way up, and that way it'll encompass what we were anticipating for these locations. Any other questions or comments?
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Derek. Real quick, so there's three projects, kind of one project with three improvements, and we're supposed to start this spring. Can you confirm that we could be finished with these in 2022? And kind of just give me the timeline.
That is our goal. I've reached out today. We in the past we have used, if you're on the council a couple years ago, we used CROG has worked with a company called Gordian with its Easy IQC program, which is pre-selected contractors that have already been awarded bids based on their bid pricing. So we used it for our Knott Street and Heather Drive drainage project a couple years ago. I've spoken with the state. They do allow that program because it's state funded. They're okay with it. So we're reaching out to them first to get a quote to see how that comes in with respect to our estimate and our funding availability. If it's suitable and the state's okay with it, we may move forward and that'll move things quicker. If not, then we'll have to put it out to bid. But it's early enough in the season that we're really working to get this done this year.
Good, great, thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Councilman Forrest?
Thanks. Derek, it looks like you've done a modified rotary here, since you did the one-ways on each side. I would recommend that you actually go full into the full rotary. I don't think it's logical for the pedestrians in this particular area to come all the way down, across the middle, across the other side. I think just logistically, kind of like the issue with the other intersection, is that pedestrians are just going to walk across exactly where that prior was, just like they did before. And they're not going to come all the way around. I think that the design of this is could definitely use some more thought moving forward. I appreciate, of course, the work, but I think the reality is that you're just going to walk straight across. And the rotary would also have a traffic calming effect on Main Street, where we know that there's a lot of trucks that sort of are racing down to the cove in that particular area. Those are just some thoughts as you continue to mull it over.
Yeah, I think the thought was at the west end of the island, we'd do something similar with some kind of landscaping or something that would preclude people from walking over it. Now, yes, they could just walk around the end of the island, and that's possible. I mean, we can only do so much with people. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to get here. And again, it was, this was determined 5 years ago as to how we were going to do it, and that's how it was funded.
Are you set, Councilman Forrest?
Yes, thank you.
Councilwoman Pelletier.
Oh, I just want to say I really like this design. This is actually, just a block or two from my house, so I'm very familiar with this intersection. Drive through it every day, obviously walk through it many times. And since I've lived there, my neighbors and myself, we've always complained about this intersection, that it's dangerous and that long, like you pointed out, the very long crosswalk that I won't even use. And I don't, let my kids use it. I don't even use it because you can't see. And when I'm driving, I've had to slam on my brakes because it's just, I've always thought it's just dangerous and someone's going to get into an accident there and so there's going to be a pedestrian hit. So I actually think you've addressed absolutely everything. And as someone who lives there, who walks it, I mean, I could see if you don't, walk this area often, you might have a different opinion, but as someone who's actually both drives and walks it daily, and has lived there a while, I think this design addresses all of my concerns I've had for years, but also my neighbors who've been complaining about it for a long time. And then you even removing that bizarre crosswalk on Main Street, which is another thing that we're like, why is that there? I feel like it's very well thought out, and I'm very excited about this project being done. I'm thrilled, actually, and I think the design is great. And I was happy to hear it'll probably be done this year, so thank you.
Thank you.
Former neighbor down there, Councilman O'Connor.
Derek, actually, I would echo Mary's. I really do appreciate the work you guys have done on this. I lived right across the street from that, so I heard the trucks, the buses that would come flying down that street with no regard for slowing down, and I would just sit there. My bedroom was actually right on the street. I could hear it, and I would always cringe waiting for that smash, because you just knew it was only a matter of time. So I think that does an unbelievable job of slowing it down. I did have a question for you, though. With the idea and suggestions that were put forth in the plan you guys did about putting the new lights along Main Street, does this job impact this, or could those lights be done in conjunction with this as opposed to digging something up and then having to dig it up again later?
Yeah, the lights for the very conceptual layout they were going to go around this intersection. What we're doing now is primarily cutting the pavement and taking away and then putting curb on the existing pavement. So this is not all reconstructed. It's just we're doing it where we need to, with the thought we're going to come back and do a full reconstruction at a later date of the entire stretch of Main Street. So after we get the lights in. So to answer your question, there is going to be some new pavement only because we needed to do some reconstruction for grading and drainage. But generally, most of it's going to stay as is, and I think I'm not too concerned about bringing in those conduits and trenching through it because it's all going to be reconstructed after that project anyway.
But just out of curiosity, is it cost beneficial to the town to do both at the same time?
It depends on where we are with that project. I mean, that's something we got to start moving forward with. I mean, certainly, it might make sense. I don't remember the layout. I think they go around the outside of the intersection, not into the island. But if there's areas where we can lay conduit while we're out there, that's relatively inexpensive. That's something we could look at working into the contract if we, can determine where they should go. Yeah.
Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Derek. I know you're probably on top of this. I know Bonnie is on top of this. What's the time frame to start this? Because I'm just looking at that May 28th, we have our Memorial Day Parade, and I just want to make sure that there's no conflicts in presentation of our property and land while we're doing the parade.
Yeah, I'm anticipating a summer start, so
Okay.
we'll work around that. We usually are in contact with Parks and Rec and understand everybody about what's going on. So any project we're doing, we try to schedule around it, or if we have
I mean,
to
it's
be
not
in-
really on the path of the parade, but I kind of just, for the traffic and whatnot in that area.
Yep. We should be after that for that
Okay.
particular event.
And then, I love these layouts as well. I agree with Mary and Dan. My question to you, I love the traffic calming. As everyone knows, that's a big thing for me. But as an avid bike rider in this area, what's the plan for like the rider-friendly walker? I know there's sidewalks for the walkers, but for the bike riders, when you're tightening up that space, is there a plan for creating a space for the bike riders?
Yes.
I see that 3-foot item on one side, but is there going to be like actual like bike rider lane, like acknowledgement this is a bike lane kind of situation going on? Is that like included in the project?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So, yes, I think we are, you may have heard, there's a bike ped committee that's been working on a plan. We had some staff changes, so that slowed down a little bit. Part of that was going to be identifying where we want to designate bike lanes versus just having shoulders. This particular area of Main Street is part of our Heritage Way Trail, so I suspect that, yes, it will be designated as that once we get through that process. But right now, Main Street, with the 10-foot travel lanes, will have significantly wide shoulders. I mean, more than the normal 4 or 5 feet you might get for a bike lane. On State Street, on the south side, it'll be a 5-foot shoulder and then a 16-foot lane, so there's at least 5 feet. And on the opposite side, it's 11 feet transitioning down to 5. So we are providing that space. As part of this project, we're not anticipating signing it. To mark it as a bike lane, it's probably going to be some signs and some pavement markings, which we can do and we will do. This won't affect that, but that's something that I think is coming down the pike.
Okay, I'm speaking on behalf of them because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask the question for them. So, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay. And finally, this is the existing area over near Standish Park. Here we flipped the plan, so north is to your left. Knott Street is going from top to bottom, and Garden Street is extending from left to right. Familiar with this area, similar to Wethersfield, so we have large right-of-ways. The crossing on Garden Street is set back quite a ways from the intersection. There's large turning radii, which allows vehicles to swing around the turns very quickly. They have limited visibility to the existing, to the pedestrians in the existing crosswalk. Garden Street continues up here on the west side of Knott Street, so the way the intersection is aligned, it lends itself to people kind of shooting across Main Street at an odd angle, going in either direction, because it's just extra pavement that isn't necessary. And along Standish Park here, where you see the darker areas, that's where the town over time has put some pavement millings behind the curb. We get a lot of vehicles parking there. When they go to the park, they just pull up over the curb to get out of the road a little bit more. And that's been going on for a while. So we're trying to address that as part of this project. So what you see here is similar to other plans. At the intersection here where you see green is existing pavement that we're going to be able to take out. We have been in touch with DOT because Knott Street in this area is a state road. They're okay with the radii that we're putting in. We did have some discussions about it. You may remember Knott Street was paved not too long ago by MDC after they finished the water main project. So we moved the ramp on the west side of the road ahead of that because we knew they were going to be paving. So what we're doing now really won't affect the paving they've done. Some of it, some small amount of it right here at the intersection will be taken out, but we're not disturbing what's out there because we're going to be saw cutting behind the new curb line. Similar to our other plans, we're going to relocate this crosswalk to the intersection at Knott Street, so pedestrians just cross it where they normally would ahead of the stop bar. Also, better visibility for vehicles traveling up and down Knott Street to see them. And then along the east side of Garden Street here, what you see in yellow is new sidewalk. The darker shaded area is a widening we're looking to do, which is basically going to be saw cutting the existing road a couple feet off the curb line and then constructing an approximate 10-foot wide parking area for vehicles to park so they can pull off the road, but they're not driving over the curb. The stretch of sidewalk along that will be integral sidewalk and curb, so it's going to have no grass shelf. It's going to be poured as a sidewalk with the curb against it, and then the parallel parking right there. Right now, there's no real pedestrian connection through here. You see the path over here across from Hubbard Place kind of winds off into the park, and then you have some sidewalk come around Knott Street here onto Garden, but then it just terminates here. So this will provide more of a direct connection. There's an existing parking lot that gets used there. We're not affecting, that's shown here, we're really not affecting the use of that. We're going to put a concrete driveway apron as we go through. There are some utility poles in this area that we're going to be working around with the sidewalks, but we'll meet ADA requirements as far as having sufficient width from the edge of the walk to the poles. This is an example of where we're just going to have to bump that sidewalk back a little bit to make sure we can maintain ADA access. Some drainage improvements in the widened area a little bit. We're going to replace the ramps at Hubbard Place intersection. Being that this is so close to the park and so close to Hanmer Elementary School, we were going to stripe a crosswalk at this particular location. Crosswalks tend to slow traffic a little bit too. It's just additional visual cues, along with the signage we normally would put up. So with this one, this was initially two projects. We submitted them as separate locations when we put the application in. One was for the work on Garden Street, and one was for the intersection. So we combined them. It's all in the same area to do it at one time. I estimate we can get about 18 vehicles to park here along the road. The intent initially was just to widen that area and leave space for parking. There were suggestions that came up from the public at the Planning and Zoning meeting last week to designate actual parallel parking spaces and stripe them. That's an option. We can do that at any point. But at this point, the intent was we were just going to widen and see how, because that's how it functions now, and see how it functions. And if it turns out, people are maybe not parking as efficiently as they should, or we have a need, then maybe we'll designate some actual spaces so we can better organize the area and use it more efficiently.
Derek, this is the area where the boulders are and there's a fencing.
Yep.
So is the sidewalk going to be up against the fence? Is that, I'm not sure exactly where it lies.
No, it's not going that far. You could see, it's hard to see here, but these hatched circles are the boulders right here.
Oh, okay.
So the back of the walk's going to be pretty much where the boulders are. We're just going to move them back a little bit, just behind it.
Okay.
We won't be going as far as the fence. That was tricky here. There are trees. There's a number of 6, 4-inch, 3-inch diameter trees that we were avoiding, so we wouldn't be affecting all those. So, that was the best we could do to kind of sneak it in there, but that's about where it's going to go.
And how wide is that parallel parking?
Yeah, it's not labeled on here, but I want to say we made it 10 feet.
Right now, the cars are they're in the street. I mean.
Yeah, they're half in the street and half over.
Right.
So this will be wide enough for a vehicle to park there outside of the travel
Still have
lane.
your full lanes.
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Any questions? Councilman Hill?
Thank you, Derek, as always. With the drainage that's being put on the side of the road, will it help the flooding issues that the parking lot has?
That was my question. I'm looking at the parking lot right now, seeing if it's flooded.
It's funny because it takes off 25% of the spaces when it gets flooded because it's unusable.
It's the
don't know.
northeast corner, just above apron, driveway apron.
Okay. In this area?
No.
Okay.
To the right.
Opposite.
Down
directly. Nope, one more, right there.
Yeah, right there.
Right here, okay. Southeast, okay. I don't think I was aware of that, to be honest with you, but we are doing drainage out here, so there might be an opportunity to put something in. We'll look at that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sounds like a neighbor who walks their dog in that area. Any other questions for Derek on the Garden and Knott Street intersection? Derek, if you could just bring it a little bit further to the north to the actual intersection. Are you handling, actually zoom out just a little bit so you can see where that angle to Knott Street, or to Hartford Avenue goes. So you're actually making it so that you actually have to come and turn a little to the, to your left when you stop, and then you can make the turn up to go north.
Correct. We're teeing up the intersection,
Yep.
is what it's called. So instead of coming in at an angle with such wide flares on the radii, we're going to tighten it up, so like you said, you can't really, it's harder to make that slip-through movement. You're going to have to come to a stop facing this way and make a
And
right
make the
turn and a
turn.
left turn. That's what
Now-
we're trying to do.
That's definitely an improvement. It's somebody, I know everybody's talked about using these intersections. You know, it's definitely one intersection that I use to go up to either the South State Highway, Jordan Lane, or to get onto the highway up that way. And I don't know how many times I've come to that intersection where somebody's they're just not even stopping. They're just making the beeline right up to that kind of angled 45 degree up there. So if this is a way to calm people down from, barreling through it and actually making a complete stop at that T, yeah, definitely a big improvement.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Well,
Fingers
thank you.
crossed that we can get this thing going. All three at the same time?
Yes, we're going to put it out as one project. We'll see how the bids come in, whether we use that program I mentioned or we actually bid it. And, if we need to, we may have to trim or piecemeal some of it, maybe with physical services or a contractor, but we're going to try and find a way to get them all done this year.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Mike,
Oh,
Derek, are we also going to speak about the old Wethersfield parking, or no?
Oh, yeah, I can provide an update on that. Well, we've got a number of things going on related to parking in Old Wethersfield. The biggest that's been lately is the Main Street parking lot behind Fire Station 1. We've developed a conceptual plan to expand the parking lot back there that would encompass some of the abutting properties as well. It would involve Webb Dean Stevens, Old Town. There's the Hughes property immediately south of the fire station, and the Charles. So what we had done, we put together a very conceptual plan. We met with some of the owners to get their feedback, listen to some of their concerns. I'm right now in the process of making some modifications to the plan so we can go back to them and have some more discussions. At this point, we have been awarded $500,000 in state grant and aid funds from bond funding. We need more to do the entire project, but if need be, we'll look at phasing it in some way. But we haven't gotten that far yet. Everything's very conceptual right now. With regard to other things we have going on for parking, we have a group of UConn students we've been working with this year that are doing a senior design project. And they had been out in the fall during some of the busy times counting cars and figuring out, where we have our issues. This semester, they're putting together some preliminary, they're going to do some conceptual design of some different things. And one of them is an expansion of the parking lot behind the Keeney Center. That's one opportunity. I mean, they're just part of their report as a suggestion, but that is something we're looking at. That's kind of where we are. I mean, again, getting back to that, bike ped study, that was a discussion around how we want to handle that. I think I'm looking at in the near future, after I get some of these projects done and we get the lighting project done, to do that reconstruction of Main Street. And by that point, we're going to have to figure out, do we want more crosswalks in certain areas? Do we want to designate no parking and parking on one side of the road? We're going to have those discussions and really figure out how we want to restripe or rebuild when we do that. But we're not there yet. So at this point, everything's very conceptual as far as what we can do.
Is the intention, though, or is it thought you're going to buy the property from these private owners, or?
No, the discussion so far has been we'd reach some kind of an agreement to have shared parking, shared access. That can be done different ways.
Okay.
And we haven't gotten that far with the discussions
I
yet.
understand. And then the other question I had for you is the cones that are out to the right of the Old Town that are kind of marking a little crosswalk. I assume that's a temporary thing that over time, eventually something else will be put in place.
Yeah, we were getting a lot of complaints with the Charles getting a lot of patronage and people parking behind the Keeney more, that we were getting a lot of people running across the road there, and with the on-street parking, it was just a very dangerous situation. That's one of the locations where we were looking at as part of the CCG project to do maybe a new crosswalk or some curb bump outs. instead of waiting for that, which right now they're not in this project, we did that as a, what we call a demonstration crosswalk to put it up. We striped where the curb line, where the bump out may go. Depending on what happens with the overall parking lot behind the Fire Station 1, you know, I do have an alternate. I might look at moving the driveway for the Keeney further south, kind of realigning it so it lines up better with the driveway across the street, and then moving that crosswalk so it's more of a direct crossing just north of it versus south of it. I think you commented people are pulling out and they're looking to the right towards Lucky Lou's, and then the pedestrians are crossing over here. So that would eliminate that.
Okay.
So that's all, you know, we're looking at all that stuff. But yeah, to answer your question, the intent is not to leave it like that forever. We want to get something put in there.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Derek while we have him?
I'll be back.
Go back up to your office, start working on these, and yeah, we'll see you in a couple months. You'll have a full beard by then. Okay. Great, thank you. And then now we're moving on to public comments. I think I see Mr. Young. Anybody else? Oh.
I'm Barbara Rue. I live at 79 Main Street, though I've been hanging out at 956 Cloverdale Circle because the fire department visited me back in December. Not that I was glad to see them, but it did create some problems. I agree with Mary that roundabouts at those intersections would be a nightmare. If anybody's been over at Hebron Avenue where they've put roundabouts, it slows traffic, but there are no pedestrians on Hebron Avenue, so it doesn't really matter. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, you know, when you change the rules, maybe for nonagenarians, you could give them more than 5 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I wasn't going to talk about roundabouts because I don't like roundabouts. But anyway, I agree with Ms. Rue that roundabouts are a problem. I also believe, and I travel in Glastonbury from time to time, and they have some roundabouts that are not huge ones like you see out at Cape Cod, but they're really tiny ones. And you have to be pretty sharp to navigate if you see another car coming the other way, you know, coming from some other direction, because you don't know really which way he's going to go. So roundabouts are bad as far as I'm concerned. The discussion tonight was regarding Wethersfield Youth Voice Count Survey 2021. It looks to me like they're putting out bad issues that need to be resolved, which the only way you can resolve them is with money. And where does it lay into? It lays into our school system. For years we've been hearing, well, we need more money to take care of problems. And we kept hearing those kinds of requests for a long time, but they never fixed the problem. When you ask for money and a raise, you should be able to produce more. I don't see that happening in Wethersfield, in our town or our school system. There's no extra production to justify the raise, so why give it to them? Next. Tonight you have on your agenda a couple items that I want to talk about real quick. One is you have a request tonight for a couple $1,000 from the Historic Society. I've talked about the Historic Society more than once in front of you folks, and you all know how I feel about that operation. It's an operation that was set up by a few people, and the rest of us had to pay for it. And the tune that we're losing by Lucky Lou's or Standish House, I don't know what they're getting right now for rent, but we should be getting that rent and putting that into our revenue bucket. But we're not. But tonight, they're coming here asking you for a couple $1,000. Now, think about it for a second. Lucky Lou's. How much money have we spent in the last 5 or 10 years on Lucky Lou's? We had the place painted. It cost a couple $100,000. There's all kinds of expenses constantly going on with snow removal, with lawns, and whatever else. And we, the taxpayers, pay for it. We didn't have a say in the matter. I sat in the auditorium in the building next door to us, in that school, when they passed that 50-year lease for $100 each year. And nobody made any comment except for they voted for it. The public who was sitting there didn't even know what the heck was going on. It was a real flim-flam operation. And I think Mr. Forrest was one of the people that voted for it at that time. We also had the Kinney Center. How much rent are they collecting from their Kinney Center when they're only giving us $100 a year? $100 a year. When there's a problem down there, our guys have to go down there and fix it. They're responsible for up to $3,000 on both of those properties each. Otherwise, we, the citizens who had no say in the matter, ended up paying for it. So I would say to you, Mayor, you should vote no on this. If they want money for their society, they should go out and try to find ways of raising it off the street. You also had another issue tonight regarding the arts, where they would like to have $2,000. And because what do they want to do? Put in a shed, a barn or something for $2,000. And again, it talks in here, it says that it gives them more room in the town building to have classes. And I said to myself, what town building? Where are they? Who are they? What are they doing in the town building if they're an arts center? Shouldn't they be on the Celestine Highway renting some piece of property? Where are they? I never heard of them. And so I'm saying, if they're in a town building, are they paying rent? And now they want $2,000 to put a shed in? I'm lost at what's going on here, Mayor. Is this another thing we're going to absorb? I mean, we just absorbed 2 meetings ago that issue with Putnam Bridge and the work that our guys are going to perform on state property, and I was ripped over that. That we're going to pay for maintenance from the bridge, from the west side of the bridge down to wherever, and it's going to be at our cost. I don't want that. And I was sitting there listening to the action going on in our town council that night on television, on my screen. I didn't want that. Why are we spending our money, why are we absorbing our money into special interest? This is special interest. We should not be putting our money there.
Mr. Young?
I'm sure. Oh, what, I'm up now?
You're about 37 seconds over.
Well, the next subject I want to go into is going to take a little longer.
You got another 5 minutes.
I got another 5 minutes and I won't come back.
Oh, no. You got another 5 minutes at the end of the
Oh,
meeting.
you're not giving me 5 minutes to continue? Thank you. I'll be back.
Good try, though. Good try. Okay. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. I don't believe there's any resignations or appointment. Oh, actually, as I go through, sorry. Hearings on ordinance and resolutions. We did have, this has been on here for a while now, the rules and procedures. We finally got to the hearings on this. Anybody wishing to speak on the rules and procedures in the public hearing portion of the agenda? Seeing none, moving on. I'll close the public hearing on that. We'll go for reports from boards and commissions. Anybody with any reports from boards and commissions? Councilor Pentelow.
Yeah, so I've been speaking about this Hartford task force that I was appointed to, the South Meadow Area Regional Task Force. We did eventually meet. It officially launched, and I was joined by leaders in the Hartford community as well as Representative Wood and Senator Fonfera. It was our kickoff meeting. It was last Thursday. We nominated a chairman, Jamie Bratt, who has experience with development services in the city of Hartford. Now she's at Fuss & O'Neill. They'll be meeting the second and fourth Thursday of every month for the foreseeable future. And basically, we pretty much came to the conclusion of what the goals of the task force would be, and how we would move something forward. And we're pretty much grouped into 3 subcommittees. They're looking at what it would be. The cost and the overall decommissioning process is a separate subcommittee. Another one is the pre-development and remediation, to kind of look at the environmental impact of shutting down both Brainerd and Mira. And also the third subcommittee is looking at the redevelopment of Mira and Brainerd. So that's sort of, I have my next meeting March 10th, so I'll kind of just keep the council apprised of any developments that may come.
Great, thank you. Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2. First, on the 24th, I attended the Parks and Rec meeting, and the most significant thing is we heard a wonderful presentation about Laura's Garden that will honor Laura Kirsch-Hart, and it will be something that will be great for the community for years. And if you go, I think it's Laura, I'm going to look this up because I don't know the website. Yeah, laurasgarden.org. There are beautiful renderings of what the butterfly garden is going to look like, and it's going to be right next to Mikey's place. And I think it's something we'll all be able to enjoy in the community for years to come, and it'll be a nice way to honor her. The second thing is we had the Career Advisory Board meeting last week, and I bring this up because, as those of you who remember, this is a board that helps students with lunch and learns, that helps students with connections in the community, with internships and job shadows. And right now, we have 2 things that we need help with from the community, including the people on this dais. We have a career fair on April 28th. I think, Councilor Forrest, you're going to be part of that. Thank you. And we are also, anybody who's interested here that wants to talk about their career to students, that's April 28th. And then we are looking for summer internships, non-paid. I know the mayor may have an internship opportunity, Bonnie and some department heads, but anybody who's looking for a Wethersfield High School student to intern in their company, again, it's unpaid, but to give them the experience, just contact me and I can help facilitate that for you with Mark Danaher, who's the coordinator at Wethersfield High School. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Great ideas. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hill?
Thanks, Mayor. I attended the Wethersfield Library Board meeting on March 1st. First, they announced that they're going to have the first book sale in 2 years. Mark your calendars, May 20th to the 22nd this year. They did submit a bond request to the state, so we'll see how that, if that passes this year. It's a $1.9 million request for what they call a refresh. This comes on the heels of some of the, this comes from some of the plans that they've presented to us in the past. And they did vote on their budget. They have a 4.17%, asking for a 4.17% increase this year, which totals to about $85,754. Nearly all of this is contractually mandated wages and health insurance. There might be a decrease depending on the fluctuation of health increase, of the health insurance increase. So fingers crossed there.
Thank you, Councilman Hill. Councilman O'Connor?
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this evening, I met with the Keisha Farms Committee, and just as an update, they will be coming to our next council meeting with a plan and a recommendation on usage of Keisha Farms. There will be a request for some funding, much of which will be covered through a grant for land survey and site study. But they have put an intensive amount of work and effort into this. They have listened to the community. They have facilitated events with the community. They have solicited feedback from the community. So I think what you'll hear is a concise, abbreviated, but pretty potent study on what they're looking to do and what they hope to accomplish. So I would anticipate you all look forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I forgot to mention at our next council meeting on the 21st, Laura's Garden, the representatives are going to present about the garden to us. So I apologize. I forgot that. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
No problem. Kirsch family, it's a great family. They do a lot for the town, from luminary sales for the Keeney Center to Steve was a former mayor. So Got it right here. Great. Oops, sorry, Ryan.
No, you're all right. Thank you, Mayor, and I hope I'm not stealing your announcement, but I just want to put back on the floor to everyone and remind everyone to help me promote that we are having our Memorial Day Parade for the first time in the last 2 years. We are planning on doing this with a bang. I'm hearing a lot of people are excited, but we want to get mass participation, including the schools. So we are reaching out to the PTOs, and right now I'm working on a PTO pride or school pride for the elementary schools. So it's still in the works, but I just want to remind everyone that we are having that parade this year, and we want everybody involved. So clear your schedules. We want to make it the best parade in this region.
You're not going with the Zoom format?
No, I will be walking, and I hope you'll be there too. And then lastly, for the Wethersfield Historical Society, I'm not going to speak about it too much because we do have someone here to speak on it that is a lot more knowledgeable of it. But we did have a meeting. There is a very valuable aspect of item that is being presented to you. I'm just asking that you hear the full story behind it before you make any decisions on the item. And like I said, I will let the professional give you the full details of what's going to be presented to you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Well, just to piggyback off of parades, this Saturday, March 12th, is the Hartford St. Patrick's Day Parade. And again, after a 2-year hiatus, they are going to be having that parade again. Back in 2020, our former deputy mayor and councilman Mike Hurley was the grand marshal or parade marshal for that 2020 parade that did not step off that year. He will be marching this year, wearing the sash of parade marshal, but we are all invited to march with the Wethersfield contingent. I believe the fire department, police department, and our band will be marching as well. So if anybody has the time and wants to get off the curb and march for once, then the invitation's out there.
Promise us good weather, Mayor?
I've marched in that. Yeah, I've marched in that parade when it's rained, snowed, and actually my wedding, it actually was the first time it ever got canceled. It snowed on my wedding day, and or the day before, which was it was the Saturday, and they canceled it, so they had to make it up the week after.
Because of your wedding?
No, the snow. The wedding went on. Parade got canceled and moved a week later. So, okay. Any other updates, boards and commissions? Hearing none? Okay, now we can move over to workshop items. No referral to regular business tonight. No resignations or appointments. I don't believe I saw any earlier, and there was no walk-ins. And now we can move to the comment, or to the item that Mr. Young had commented on. Item B3, this is the storage shed at the Wethersfield Art League. This is the one that is, this is the one that I think you guys had looked at, and we've had some discussions on. We can have discussions tonight. I know we've got, there are some concerns with funding of this in the current budget, but I'll open the floor up for discussion now, and then maybe there was a motion later on. So is any, I guess maybe Bonnie, you want to give a brief explanation for those that may not know much about it?
The Art League has been in the Little Red Schoolhouse for a number of years. Very tiny building, and they basically give classes and have art lessons and, promote painting from a number of our residents. They were using the Keeney Center for their art show, and that isn't possible any longer. So they would like to have it using the Little Red Schoolhouse. The problem is they have so much in the schoolhouse, they can't have the art show. So they're asking for a storage shed in the backyard so that they could locate many of the items in the schoolhouse into the storage shed. Then they can have more in classes as well as the actual art show, which is how they kind of operate. So there was a request to have that funded now. I know there was discussion about possibly postponing till we have a better feel for the budget, and I did explain that to the woman requesting this on behalf of the Art League, and she felt, I mean, if it could still happen after that, then they'd be willing to wait. So that's all I can tell you.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I'm not familiar with the parking there, but is there enough parking to have some kind of show there? I mean,
There's a few spots in the back area.
if they're on Wells Road, it's right at the corner almost.
Yes,
You can't
it
park
is.
on the street.
It's behind there.
It's
The
behind.
little schoolhouse, it's kind of in the back.
Yeah,
Maybe 10, 12 spaces.
and that's all I need for the.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about the Art League, in fact, Councilman Lesser was there, had never been there before when this woman actually approached Councilman Lesser about the need for the shed, so I think that's how partially this whole thing got started. I don't want to speak for you, but.
That's about right. I'll just add that, and make sure you get this, earth without art is just eh. Just look at that. It's a famous little line that artists use. But anyways, thank you for laughing. If this is something we can do, I mean, to support our local arts, I mean, I think it would be great. I understand that, it's not a huge budget item, but I understand we may want to wait. That's fine with me. They approached me, and I told them I would bring it up. So. Dan, I think you laughed too. Thank you.
Councilman O'Connor.
I was just going to say, and L without lover is over. No, I do have a question. You mentioned Keeney Center is impossible. Why is that?
There's a cost, and I don't want to speak, for the executive director, but I guess there had not been a cost, and now there is, and this group makes hardly any money at all, so they cannot afford to do that.
Well, that's sad. Because I will tell you where I feel on this. I would love to help them out, but my biggest concern right now is I think it sets a horrible precedent. And I think because I know from a youth sports perspective, there were times I wanted to get a shed, and we didn't even have anywhere to put it, and it would have involved us putting it on town property. And if we as a council are willing to give a shed and purchase a shed for this organization, how do you say no to basketball or baseball or football or lacrosse or what have you? I mean, I feel like we put ourselves in a really uncomfortable position where either we're going to say yes to everybody, and by saying no to some and yes to others, I just think it sets a horrible precedent. And so I do have some concerns with that, and to tell you the truth, I have a bigger concern with the fact that the Keeney Center, which we basically fund, which is really town money, is turning around and trying to make a profit off of another organization that we also fund. And so to me if it's possible, I would go back to Keeney Center and say, we're all in this together, and, they can help out here. I see no reason why they should suddenly be charging them. In essence, not only are they looking to make a profit off it, they're looking to financially hurt the town by forcing us to go buy something because they want to make a profit.
Let me just, for clarity, is it the Keeney Center, the town, is the town charging the Art League to use the Keeney Center, or is it the Historical
From what I
Society?
understand, and again, I mean, she can, Amy can answer this question better than I. That they were not charged, and now they're going to be charged.
Okay.
Can we get her to answer?
Yeah.
Are
Yep.
you okay with that, Mayor?
Sure. I could see you shaking your head. And for the record, name and address.
Thank you. I'm Amy Woodorf. I'm the Executive Director of Wethersfield Historical Society. I live at 17 Center Street. We do not charge the Art League to exhibit at the Keeney Center. We've never charged them. We don't plan to charge them. This year, because of our exhibit schedule, which is driven by the grants we have received, we cannot accommodate the time frame that they want. But we have not said that they cannot ever come and exhibit again. It's just, it's not working out for the time frame that they want this year. We do not seek to make a profit. We know they don't have money. We're here to serve the town. It's just the timing is not working out because of grants and the pandemic and what's going on right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Pelletier.
I just had a question. Mr. Young brought up something that it sort of piqued my interest. Does the Art League pay rent to the town to use the building, the town building that they're? No. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman O'Connor.
Is it possible, and I'll ask Councilor Lesser, in your talks with them, that they can find a date that would work for this? And thank you for that clarification, because that's not how it looks here. So I appreciate that, but is there another date they can do their art show at, so there isn't a cost?
I don't know the answer to that. I assume so. I'm not in regular communication with them, but, I mean, we can find that out. It's a good point, Councilor.
I think the next session starts pretty soon. My daughter signed up, so.
For the Art League?
Yeah, so you can, it's your name on the list.
Can we look into that?
Yeah, I think we,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, we should have had Lorraine here, because she's saying you were told they can't rent, and so I don't know, I'll find out.
okay. We got a couple questions on this. There's obviously a concern of cost and the budget situation right now. We are just leading into the fiscal year 23 budget. So anybody else with any questions on Councilman Biggs?
I just, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to clarify, because my assumption in the beginning was they needed the shed for storage. It wasn't to do their art show. I thought they were just looking, I'm not,
Correct.
I'm just saying.
That's correct.
It kind of,
That's correct.
it
Storage.
shifted, like, let's see if the schedule changed. I don't think they're looking for the schedule change. I think they're looking for storage for their property, right? That's
They
what.
want to clear the space out,
Right.
put it in the
art-
shed, and then have the art show.
Okay, so they want to take the stuff out of their current location, put it in the shed, have art, okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, because it kind of seemed like it shifted a little bit from storage to art show. and
Disconnected,
I was
but
trying to
they
figure
are going to
out.
store their stuff, and they want us to pay for a shed. But
Got it. Thank you very much for clarifying that for me.
Okay. And it is good to note that, you know, they are, they have use of the Little Red Schoolhouse at no cost right now to them. And, I mean, we do pay for services, you know, utilities and upkeep, and I suspect probably a new roof at some point soon, if not.
That's on the schedule.
It is? Yep. So, with a lot of questions, including, you know, the conflicting schedule concerns that was brought up by actually the Historical Society, but conflicts with what you had received in an email from those at the Art League. You know, I think maybe we could, do we have to table this, or can we put this on hold until after budget?
If you're going to put it on hold till after budget, then I would just postpone. But if you're just going to wait to get more information and bring it back next meeting, I would just table it.
No, I think we should probably postpone it until after we get a better handle on the budget situation for next fiscal year. Discussion on that?
Make a motion to postpone?
Well,
You don't even need to do anything. You can just let it, just go move on to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just didn't
I
want
just
to
had,
make a motion.
if there was sorry.
Councilman Forrest.
If there was an issue where they had to store some stuff for like the size of one of the sheds that I just sort of looked at, I mean, perhaps even as a goodwill gesture, like the Keeney Center or something could say, like, we could have some space just to put it, or we might have another location in another town building where they could get a couple cars and some trucks and throw it in the back and move it over, and they could still do their thing. So I think there could be some more additional goodwill gestures to get them where they need to be and offer up the facilities that we do have.
Right.
But, and I agree with the postponing, that makes sense. I don't think you have to make a formal motion. I can just move on to the next item, and no one's made a motion, and
Yep.
we've discussed it.
And actually, just looking at some of the sizes in what is in our packet, I don't know if they are below the threshold for P and Z or for any type of...
They are below, because I checked sizing
Okay,
with Denise.
gotcha. Yep, so we've got a couple questions, so we'll just postpone this indefinitely until we have a better handle on some of the concerns that were brought up tonight, and we have a better handle on the finances for next fiscal year. Okay, moving on. Now we've got, actually, the Historical Society is here. This is the restoration of the Ralph Nelson paintings. I believe there's 4 currently being displayed at the Keeney Center at the on behalf of the Historical Society, and there is a 5th. I will open up the floor to Amy Wittroff, if you want to come in again for the second time.
Hello again, Amy Woodorf. I'm the Executive Director of Wethersfield Historical Society, and I live at 17 Center Street. 1936, through the Works Progress Administration, the Federal Arts Project, artist and illustrator Ralph Nelson was commissioned to create 5 paintings, 5 murals, for Wethersfield Public Schools depicting the early settlement of Wethersfield. These were on display in those schools until the schools were renovated or torn down. They were stored, I believe they were stored in the Stillman School. Early 1990s, these paintings were restored by the town. 4 of them were restored by the town. The 5th was missing. Those 4 paintings have been exhibited on long-term loan at the Keeney Center in the Rotary Room, and if you've been in our Rotary Room, you've probably admired them. They're very large, they're colorful. They have a kind of a storybook quality to them, which goes to follow because Ralph Nelson was an illustrator. In 2014, we received an email from a woman who had what she thought was the missing 5th painting. And we determined that it was indeed the missing painting. And we were encouraging her to donate it back to the town because it was town property and technically stolen. Well, we turned it over to Jeff Bridges at that point. Jeff talked to her. He couldn't get her to donate it. So fast forward to January, beginning of January this year, I received a long box at the old academy. I opened it up, and there was the missing painting, rolled up canvas. From that same woman, with a letter saying she bought it at a yard sale and was donating it. So I let Bonnie know. We talked about conservation because the painting is in terrible condition, rolled up, paint flaking. So I told Bonnie that I thought I knew of a grant that I might be able to get for conservation for this painting. Would it be okay for me to get a quote from a conservator and to write the grant? And Bonnie said okay. So we sent the painting out to Oxford, Connecticut. Yoast Conservation, this was recommended by Rich Malley at Webb Dean Stevens as a reasonable but good conservator. Our curator drove it out there. They gave us a quote of $8,000 to $9,000 to restore this painting. I wrote the grant. We received the grant, but only $7,000 of it. So here we are. We have the town's painting has been returned. I got 7 of the 9,000 needed to restore it. So we need another $2,000 or whatever the council's pleasure is to do with this painting at this point.
Discussion? Councilman Biggs?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Amy. So for this, so you said they came in with a quote between 8 to 9.
Yes.
Was there a conversation of wiggle space and saying, hey, can you work with this, or can you bring that price down?
No, because I hadn't had the grant at that point. I had to move quickly because the grant deadline was January 31st. And So we sent it to them, they said, this is what it's going to cost somewhere in there, because it's really kind of hard to tell before they get into it. And that's what we have.
And is there a deadline for the grant?
I believe we
As far
have,
as using
we
the
have to
grant?
use it within a year, and the donor wants quarterly updates on the progress of the project.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Pelletier?
So have you thought about, or have you pursued getting another quote? Because it sounds like you just went to one place. Because I'm thinking maybe someone would be able to do it for 7,000.
Well, that's certainly something, if the town wishes to do that, tell us where to send it, and we will send it.
Okay.
Councilman Forrest?
Phenomenal story. You had me at hello, you know? Let's say we restore this painting.
Mm-hmm.
Are these funds also for the display of said painting, matting,
No,
frame,
it does-
et
well,
cetera?
it would
What's the
come
plan?
on it would still need to be framed.
Yeah.
And the paintings that are there were framed, I believe, the wood shop at the high school did it.
Really?
So that's what we looked into again.
Yeah.
They're very simple, just like strips of wood.
Yeah, cool. I'm completely on board. This is a part of our history. It's- like, the story is fantastic, but it's not because of the story, but it's because of who we are. The work's been done. This is just a token in order to get us over the hill to put this painting back in our catalog and be able to display it for ourselves and our posterity. I'm a yes.
I guess I have, so you own the painting?
The
correct?
town owns the painting.
Yep, we do. And we own the other four?
Yes, we
I
own the
believe?
other four as well.
Yep. Are they insured?
Yes,
And they're covered by our insurance?
correct.
Well, just on that thought, excuse me, Mayor, was this fifth one that was stolen insured? Because there should
I
be some.
doubt it, because when you do these policies, you don't even know that thing exists. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You know there's a fifth, but where it is, who knows?
But does it fall under the insurance policy?
Typically, it had to be in your possession for you to add it in your insurance, and if it wasn't in our possession in the initial insurance, then no.
But that was my question, is when we did the initial insurance on these, was that in our possession?
As far as
before
I
they
know,
sold
the
them?
number they have, and I'll double check, is 4.
Okay. I'm just curious, that might fund it.
So adding a fifth would add insurance cost to the town as well?
Fine arts is
I mean, it would, but I don't think it's much. I mean, if you really insure paintings in your own insurance policy, it's next to nothing, even though, because I've got a few at home that are worth something, so I'm thinking, oh, they're going to add big bucks. No, they don't. You know, they really don't. Again, I can find out, but
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I have a financial issue with this item that was brought forward by Mr. Young tonight. We put a lot of money into those buildings that are managed by the Historic District. Just this year alone, I've been on the Capital Improvements Advisory Commission, and we have a total of $410,000 that we're going to spend on Old Academy, which I believe is part of the Historic District,
Historical Society.
Historic Society, group of buildings. We're going to spend $37,000 doing engineer and design work for the cupola. We're going to replace the chimney in the cupola for another $168,000, and we're going to replace an air handler for $30,000. At the Keeney, we're going to be replacing an air handler and a hot water system for $175,000. So we're going to put in $410,000 into those properties. Not to mention that I believe we pay all the utilities, all the operating expenses for those buildings. We heat them, we maintain them, interior, exterior. A lot of investment by the town And I quite frankly think that the Historic Society would be able to come up with $2,000 in some manner. I also understand that although they're town buildings, we're charged, the town is charged to use those buildings, which I just don't agree with the entire concept of that. I know we looked at costs as a polling place. It costs us $700 every time we have an election to allow voters to go into our own town building to vote. And I just don't think that's right. So I know it's only $2,000, but it's $2,000 here, it's $2,000 there. We're faced with this every time we do a budget, and I just don't agree with it.
I guess actually, while we have you here, I mean, that was something that we'd always heard, was that the town pays a fee for election day. Is that true?
I believe so. I don't know the specific details on it.
And is it for just election day, or if there's a primary or a referendum?
It's whenever the room is used for voting.
Okay. So I believe, well, I don't know, because the conventions aren't over, but there's possibly a primary and obviously an election coming up. Do we know the state of the town coming up? That's a town event at the?
It's a chamber.
Oh, it's a chamber event? Is the chamber paying for that, or, I guess, yeah, actually, that would be a question. Does it, for that state of the town address at the Keeney Center? Thursdays, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a chamber event. Is the chamber paying for that event, or
Yes,
is it?
they are.
Okay. Similar.
I was led to believe the town pays a portion of that.
Yes, me too. Similar to the conflicting email and then that story, now there's a conflict in that. I guess we may need to get an answer on that. Who's paying for the rental of the state of the town?
I will double check, but you may be getting confused with the other event EDIC sponsors, because then we would pay. But I'll double check.
Okay. Actually, oh, no, Mike O'Neill's not here just yet. I'm sure he would know.
You might have to look it up too.
Right. Okay. Any other, Councilman O'Connor?
Yeah, just clarification. I thought when you last came up, you mentioned that you don't charge the town for anything, and yet I think you just
I
gave-
don't believe I said that. I said we don't charge the Art League
You said
for
you
their
don't-
exhibits.
You don't make a profit off of the
We
town.
don't make we don't make a profit. Counselor Biggs knows what our budget looks like. Mayor Rell knows what our budget looks like because he was our town council liaison before. We do not make profit.
But you charge the town for use of our own
We
buildings.
we charge everyone who uses the building. That's part of the way that we are able to keep it operating.
Okay.
But the town pays the operating costs, correct?
It pays the utilities. We pay for the insurance, the cleaning, staffing. In our lease, there's a division of labor that lists all those things.
And you also have revenue from the Standish House, correct?
We do. It helps support the operation of the Keeney Center.
Councilwoman Pelletier?
I feel like this work could be done for $7,000. I just Googled quickly painting restoration in New England, and there's a few places came up. I know you don't want to trust it to a fly-by-night place, but I think it could probably get done for $7,000. I also, agree with the deputy mayor about, it does rub me the wrong way that the town has to pay to use a town building for an election as a polling place, and particularly when we're being charged significantly more than the other polling locations we use. The Incarnation charges $300. The Methodist Church charges $400. And then the Historical Society charges us $700. It's the fewest voters actually vote in that location, but it's also just seems like, as the deputy mayor said, it's the town building, and we put substantial amount of money into its maintenance and upkeep. Having said that, I really do love the Historical Society. I've been a member since I moved to Wethersfield. I pay my dues every year happily. I think it's a great organization. And I know you don't have the money laying around, so I understand that, and I appreciate you going and getting this grant. I think, $7,000 for this painting, it sounds great, and it's only been sent to one restoration place, and I would like to see if we can do this at, maybe a different place could do it, or maybe you would be willing to waive the fees for the upcoming election this year for the town, and the money could be got that way. It's, as the mayor mentioned, there's likely to be a primary, and then the regular election in November, and that would be, $1,400 you'd be charging the town. So I don't know. I just feel like we can get there without just, handing over $2,000. I don't know if that's something that you would consider.
That's not something for me personally to decide. It would have to go before our board.
I got a question about, obviously the pandemic has hit a number of businesses, a number of tourist attractions, events have been canceled. Over the last 2 years, you've seen a decrease, obviously, in rental income for the Keeney Center. Going forward, though, as we are starting to see, hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel with spring and summer, and you'd mentioned that scheduling-wise, it wouldn't work out for the Art League to rent the facility. Are you seeing an uptick in rentals over the last 2 years?
No, our rentals are significantly down. They're starting to look a little bit better, but of course, the Art League would be using our gallery space, not our rental space. And they would have it for like a month to 6 weeks, I think. I forget how long they have it. So we have to take down an exhibit that we have up in order for them to put their exhibit in there. We have this exhibit funded by Hartford Foundation that we're supposed to have in there. So that's the conundrum we have. We can try and find them other space. They can't have that particular gallery at the time they want it. If we can work out the hallway or the May classroom, we could do that. But they were not told that they would be charged at any time.
Councilman O'Connor, did you have a
I
follow-up?
was just going to say, can we ask the town manager to research a couple of other bids just to make sure that is in line before we make any decision? I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, we're going to give you $2,000 when we really don't even have an actual bid per se. And maybe just see, maybe there are other ones out there that are a lot better and there'd be no need for town funds at all.
I can, but I'm not the expert on restored painting. I've learned a lot of things in my career, but that's not one of them. So perhaps Amy and I could do that together.
If I'm not mistaken, you said it's a 1 year, and you've already received the grant?
We received the grant on the 22nd of February, George Washington's birthday.
Okay. So you have a year.
Yeah, it's going to take several months for the painting to be restored, so.
Are the conditions of the grant that it has to be fully restored for them to release the funds?
We have the funds. We have the funds in the bank.
Oh, okay. And if it's not restored in 1 year, they take the funds back?
I have to explain to them why.
Okay. Actually, kind of like, we do everything by looking, and Derek has a couple bids on for tonight. We do pretty much everything by bids, and there's few exceptions where we take the, second or third highest, or lowest bidder. We always look at the lowest bidder, just because it is taxpayer money that we're working with. You know, I do like that idea of going out and getting a couple more quotes on this, but I'll defer to.
I think, you know, it's not as cut and dry as a typical bid that we send out. So
No.
this is going to involve moving this piece of art to another restoration facility and have them look at it and see what they can do and get a price. And if you want to get 3 bids and do it like a competitive bid, that's, you know, someone's full-time job for whatever, to collect those bids. It's not like you're going to send them a picture of it, tell them it's, you know, 4 by 6 and it's in bad shape. Give us a price. So, something to consider.
I mean, I would consider just maybe 2 more bids.
Yeah, they already have one.
They've
Already-
got one.
I mean, it doesn't have to be an official bid, just
Yeah,
a
just-
quote, just a quote.
Yeah, let me work with Amy, we'll see what we can come up with. I'll learn something new.
Okay.
What was it new
We're
day?
going to postpone this?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can table it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Make a motion to table this item, and have the town manager work with the Historical Society on further review of possible quotes on this.
Point of clarification, is the motion to, if the motion to table goes through, it comes right back up after the next item. And I don't think that's what
Oh,
you're intending.
no.
So until the next
Table
council
until the
meeting,
next council
until-
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did see Derek come back. He was busy crunching numbers upstairs, getting us some more projects to fulfill. We're on item number B5. This is the spring paving program bid. Both, actually all 4 of them. Milling and Reclamation. This is the paving with Tilcon, and then general paving to do the curbing and aprons, I suspect. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I have 4 different agenda items. The first one is related to our reclamation, milling and reclamation work. Historically, the town has used state bid for that. That generally works out well as far as costs are generally lower because of the amount of work that they're doing. However, if you remember last year, some of you that were here, the state took that work out of their contracts, so the town no longer has that ability to utilize it. So this year, we put out a local bid solicitation for our reclamation work, which is primarily, good amount of our project is going to be pavement reclamation. We will do a little bit of milling. So we included milling, reclamation, pavement removal, and fine grading as part of it. We received 5 bids. The low bid was Connecticut Sealcoating out of Bethlehem at $128,445. We did look at that, that is fairly comparable to what we usually pay on the state bid, which is fortunate. The other bidders were much higher, running from $269,000 to $409,000. So awarding to Connecticut Sealcoating would be pretty consistent to prices we've been paying in recent years. We did review their experience with similar projects, check their references. We have no reason to feel that they can't do the work. They seem to be reputable in this line of skill. So one thing with this is, so this first item really was just a contract award to this company for the 2022 season, which is how we bid it. There is a potential always for encountering poor soil conditions. We do sampling ahead of time to check, but that's, only gives us so much information. So I'm recommending awarding a $150,000 contract to them. That way, for some of the items, we just made assumptions on units. If we do actually encounter some poor soils out here for the spring program, then we would have some funding available. So I'm requesting award of $150,000 for the contract, which expires end of December.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
So Derek, to clarify, you say the price is in line what you've seen in the past, but yet it's significantly lower than the competing bids. Do we have any kind of reasoning or rationale for that, or?
We spoke to the company about that to make sure they were comfortable with it. I think they spoke with my staff and indicated that they may not have included some of the work such as rough grading that is part of the reclamation price. However, they said they felt very comfortable going forward with it as is. Yeah, they are significantly lower. And we've talked in the past about going out to local bid usually can be higher than state, which is why we usually use the state bid. Unfortunately, that's not an option for us now going forward in a lot of towns. So they are very significant, much lower, but they are comfortable doing the work at that price.
Do you know if they have a sister company that does the reclamation work? When I looked them up, I ended up going to a different milling and reclamation company.
I don't remember that coming up in the bid.
United Paving or something like that.
I don't remember that being specified in the bid, but we can look into it. I know they have worked in town before doing crack repair work for us, so they have worked for us doing that. I have not worked with them on reclamation, but we did talk to a number of municipalities that have used them in the area, and they were very happy with the work they did. So we're comfortable moving forward. We feel we've got a good price here, and they're willing to work with us on it. They're happy with it, so I think we're comfortable moving forward.
We have a pretty tight contract as far as scope of work, where they're not going to come in here and say, oh, well, we only go a foot away from the curbs or something.
Yeah, we provided technical specifications to them as part of it that are all part of the contract. We gave them the roads that we were planning to do this spring and what we were anticipating for the fall. So yeah, I'm comfortable we're covered in that respect. I don't think they're trying to pull a fast one by come back at us.
Yeah, I'm not really thinking that way. I'm thinking they don't understand what they're bidding on.
Yeah, we went through it with them. We walked the site with them, and they said they were comfortable coming in to do the work.
The references you used, were they, towns that you're in close contact with? And
yeah, towns locally that
you
do
trust
this
them?
type of work, and they were happy with it. They've done large projects, both municipal and private, that are, far exceeds what we're going to be spending. So they've done very large, complex projects. So comfortable with it. The one thing I will say, I know they may rent some of their equipment, and we don't really have a problem with that. Like, for instance, a reclamation machine is a very costly piece of equipment. Some companies just rent it and use it. But I mean, that's some ways. My staff feels that's better because you're getting new, better maintained equipment. Sometimes some of these companies come in with very old equipment. They're breaking down 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, we've had that issue too. So that may be some of the redirection as to what you're seeing on the website, but we'll look into it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this item for Derek? Now, I think we do it all as one item, or do we do each individual?
I think they're separate
Yeah, they are
motions.
separate motions.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to award the milling reclamation pavement improvement and fine grading work to Connecticut Sealcoating LLC in amount not to exceed $150,000.
Second. Do you want to wait
Oh,
for other voters, or
I think it'll pass.
we're okay?
Well, we have a quorum, and
or we could just,
I say
No, we have 5 here, right? Yeah.
we got it.
Okay.
you want to wait for Matt and Ryan?
Might turn into roundabouts.
Oh, quick, before he gets back.
Okay, motion has been made. Did I hear a second?
Yep.
Sue, you got that?
Yes, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, ayes have it, motion carries. Now we're on item number B5B. This is as well. This is, if I'm not mistaken, Connecticut Sealcoating as well, but for a much lower cost of $70,000. And I guess actually before you go, maybe you can be able to answer this. What is the difference? Why are we doing a 150 and then a 70, so I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways of doing this. Typically, when we award a contract, I come in to council for approval of the award of the contract as a whole. And then if we are issuing any POs that exceed the $32,000 threshold, I come to you for approval. So I did them as two. One is the previous one is the award of the contract for the year, and then this one is to issue for only the spring program a PO that exceeds that value. So it's $70,000.
There'll be a fall one.
I'll come back in the fall like I normally do with new numbers and new requests.
All within the $150,000.
That's our expectation, yes.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
There's a typo on the motion. I have spring of 2020 paving.
Oh, sorry.
I just want
I
to,
went back in time.
correct
Oh,
that
yeah.
before we vote on it.
Back when she wasn't here.
Nor were we. Spring of 2020, depends on when it was. We may not have been in here either. And Derek, any comments on this? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Spring paving, you have the streets from where to where. It looks like these are south Rocky Hill Town Line area. Actually, one does say Rocky Hill Town Line. And if I'm not mistaken, we did Charter Road. Is that one we did? That was a pretty long, big one, too.
Yeah, we did that a few years ago. So this is the neighborhood to the west of that. All the roads are about the same age and in very poor condition. So it's been overdue.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't say something about Broad Street from the North Green to Marsh Street. I don't know.
Or if it's
Anybody-
easier from Councilor Hill's house to Councilor O'Connor's.
Even if it's that section right there.
I can't believe a third of the council lives on that little.
But and maybe we can talk with Sally at some point, but that section of Broad Street where it narrows right before you get to Marsh Street is just, I don't know. It never holds the temporary, cold patch, and I guess they do all the work that they can, but.
Well, I don't want to give it away, but if you could be patient, we're getting there.
Good to know.
Nice to be mayor.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, is there a motion tonight?
Whoever wants to do it. Mayor.
I'll make a motion to award the mill and reclaim of roads during the spring 2022 paving program to Connecticut Sealcoating, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $70,000.
Second.
Discussion? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Third item on this is now this is the actual paving itself. Tilcon, I believe we've used them in the past. I think they are the ones that have typically been doing the paving for us. And is this a state bid?
Yes,
For
it
this
is.
one?
Yep. Yeah, this is working off the state contract, as we usually do. The state had a bid opening last month. For our work and where we are, Tilcon was a low bidder. Their costs have gone up, about 7 to 13% compared to last year, so there's been a significant increase. Although the other bidders had the same. I looked at second low bidder, and they were coming up that much too. So I think it's just a sign of the way things are currently in the world, and just with the pandemic finishing up. So we are paying a little bit more for it, but they are the low bid. We have gone through paving advisory committee like we usually do for approval of the roads that we're going to pave. So this request is seeking approval to issue a $375,000 PO to Tilcon. Right now, the state had just opened, so everything's still preliminary. So what we've done in the past is I get approval from council with the understanding that we don't issue a contract until the state has their contract in place. So we just sit on it until that point.
Gotcha. Any questions for Derek on this? And I guess in the industry, are you guys forecasting, I know the asphalt batching plants are going to be opening up soon. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but 40% has got to be some type of petroleum product in asphalt. forecasting any increases in the future due to?
It's hard to say, but the price of oil has gone up, and therefore anything that contains it goes up. So I assume that's why some of this comes in. The state, the way they do their contracts, there's an asphalt adjustment cost. So the way that works is the bidders bid on a certain day, and the oil prices are a certain price. And if it goes up a certain amount or down a certain amount, there's adjustments made to their unit pricing based on when the work is actually done. So, there's always that potential that if prices keep climbing, that the actual cost when we do, say, fall work may be a little bit higher than we're actually paying now. So that depends. But yeah, most likely, I wouldn't be surprised if it does continue to go up.
Okay. Any other questions for Derek on this? Hearing none. Is there a motion? Oh,
I'll make it, but I don't know if I can pronounce that word, Tom, so.
Bituminous.
Bituminous? Okay, I'll do it. I make a motion to award the Bituminous concrete roadwork to Tilcon, Connecticut, in an amount not to exceed $375,000.
Second.
motion had been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none. Ayes have it, motion carries.
You nailed it, Ken. You nailed it.
You
Tom helped me.
sounded out just as it's spelled.
Tom helped.
Okay, and the final one, curbing, aprons, and drain improvements, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is the final component, excuse me, to our spring paving program. General Paving is working under a contract extension right now until 2024. They do, as you mentioned, drainage, road patching, curb apron replacements, removal of excess material, and maintenance protection of traffic for our paving programs. They also assist staff and help, manage the contractors that we have working for us. So seeking an increase of $275,000 in their existing PO.
Any questions for Derek on this item? Nope, hearing none.
Make a motion to award the site preparation, restoration work, drainage improvements, and additional support services associated with the town's roadwork to General Paving in the amount of not to exceed $275,000.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Councilman Forrest made that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, ayes have it, motion carries.
I got one question for Derek.
Sure.
Derek, do you have an update on, you're doing the road evaluation program? And is that like finalized, or where do you stand with that report?
It's still in progress. They have finished all the field inspections, so we just finished reviewing their first round of data, and we're going to have a meeting with them shortly to talk about that. So it is still in progress. So we've looked at all the road ratings, because as you remember, we're doing the town-wide study. The purpose of that is really to develop our programs going forward. We've only scheduled out through 2022. And to clarify my comment about Broad Street, I made that comment because it's been on the list for a number of years, and we're hoping to get it done this year in the area around the green. But going forward, we need to start coordinating with the utility company. So my hope is this spring we can finish up that process, get final reports. They'll come into council and do a presentation on what their results are. And then we can use that data and the software we're purchasing to start planning going forward. Hopefully by late spring, early summer, we'll have that defined.
Was the last plan 5 years or 10 years?
Well, it was a 5-year plan. We extended it to 6, just to give us some time in between the study that they're doing and the next round. Because it started in 2017, this plan.
I'm very interested to see if we're maintaining or if we're slipping.
Yeah, and the challenge with that is anybody who reviews it may have a little bit of different numbers. Historically, we've used VHB as our consultant in the past for many years, maybe 20 years. This year, we decided to go in a different direction with Beta. And I had been in to talk to you about it at the time, but mostly because the software they offered was much more affordable. They had the same type of experience. So there might be a little bit of an anomaly this year because we're jumping from one company to another. I mean, it could vary person to person, but company to company. What we've seen so far looks like it's pretty consistent. I mean, the feedback we got is initially that our PCI rating overall is actually pretty good, much better than they see for a lot of municipalities. But I do want to try and make that correlation between where we were and where we are to see that we're making progress. Yeah.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank
Great.
you, everyone.
Any other questions for Derek?
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
4 items coming on. Moving down this, we just had the public hearing on, did not hear anybody comment on this, but it has been commented on before, number of council meetings and then off-council conversations. The rules and procedures, if memory serves me correctly, this actually stems from some conversations we had originally about workshop meetings versus regular meetings, and then it transitioned into working in our virtual or remote meetings to accomplish what we've been doing a couple times over the past 2 years with our virtual meetings. They have been allowed through the governor's executive order and then through state statute. I guess we have to make our ordinances coincide with what is allowed by state statute. So I think the rules and procedures had actual telephone written in, phone in, rather than virtual. So, and nor did it have email or electronic use.
Electronic was never mentioned.
Right. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to thank Councilor Forrest for bringing my attention to paragraph G. And I was trying to figure out, how did Matt arrange to have my internet disconnected right before the vote? So, no,
That was fascinating. It really
He was
like,
frozen in time, too.
Tom, this will never happen.
I was out of my mind. But no, honestly, I thought it was a little bit, you were getting into the details a little bit much, and, you were right and I was wrong.
Sue,
It
write
was
that down.
unbelievable that it happened to me on something that I was fairly passionate about voting on. So, kudos to Matt for it.
Did you get all that? Okay.
Word for word.
Yeah. Into the record.
Word for word. I'll take it to my wife, she'll say, it's all wrong.
So we have seen this. I kind of gave a brief overview of some of the changes. It is all noted in here. Underline is new in red. Well, actually, I don't know. Oh, yeah, we have it on the screens as well. Is the deleted sections. These are simply updating, and then there's some changes by moving it from the workshop to continuing to have regular meetings. But there is some conforming language at the end. If you guys see a number of red crossouts, that is simply because there are 2 separate meetings that were originally in this town ordinance. Any questions or comments about this as we move forward? Councilman O'Connor?
I would just thank all of you guys who put the time and energy into doing this. This, I think, was long overdue, and so there's some great changes in here, and there are many times when a counselor, we are volunteers, may have to work, and they're out of state, but they're sitting in a hotel room, and they could easily be here and to be prohibited from doing it. I think this is great. I think it will serve the town well, and it ensures everybody's voice is heard, so I think it's great, so thank you.
Right. And to your point, this is a volunteer board. Most boards and commissions are all volunteers. We don't want people to abuse it, to, stay home and simply not show up to do the service. So it did take some time to craft the right language, but in today's day and age, when you can work remotely and continue to serve the public like we did over the last couple months, virtually, it can be done. And this does give the option out there. Councilman Forrest?
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank Tom and the town attorney, and we did a lot of work, and this was like a real great bipartisan effort. Or I hate to like say that because it like treats us like different teams, but we worked together on this, and it was great. And just a couple, since we're all here, just a couple notations as we sort of move forward, because there is some technicalities. Have your cell phone, if you're going to be remote, have your cell phone next to you. Have the town manager's number, because in our rules, if you go down for any reason, you get the meeting's going to be held for 3 minutes if there's a vote, and you can call the town manager as a secondary. And if you have if the power goes out, the cell towers are still working, so it really is a pretty good backup. And it's the counselor's responsibility to ensure a good connection. That means you have to probably not have friends here. Ensure a good connection, and ensure that the secondary connection exists, so that you can always make your vote when you want to make your vote, participate when you want to participate, and then. But it's a pretty quick time frame, so have that phone next to you if you're going to be remote. If you're going to be at a business meeting, might be may not work out so well. You can always tell the town manager is the person you're supposed to call. There's a designated person if that happens. So that's like the major changes. And then also, just for everybody, if you are going to do it, you have to notify the town manager at least 8 hours before the meeting. All right, it's not this. There's no 30 minutes before the meeting. I'm letting you know I'm going to need a Zoom link, and that's a pretty strict rule that we put in there. So you're going to know you're going to be away. You're going to tell the town manager so they can get you a link for the virtual no less than 8 hours prior to the notice meeting, or you won't be considered present. And just everyone, and this was Mary's idea, also another good idea, everyone who is participating in the meeting constitutes a quorum, whether you're virtual or not, that we're here. So that's the ground rules for all of us, in whatever way we move forward. So I want to thank everyone. We've got a couple more things that we're working on in the back, which I'm hopeful is the same. 95% of the things we agree upon, and let's get some work done for the town of Wethersfield. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And this is one thing we saw with the legislature, if anybody's been following public hearings or committee meetings up there. One thing I would ask that, if this current council or any future council does this, that they refrain from driving at the same time that they are conducting town business. Pull over to the side of the road, or make sure that you're not operating a motor vehicle, or anything that would be hazardous or jeopardize the safety of yourself or any other individuals while you're conducting town business virtually. Okay. I'll open it up to you to finally make a motion on this one.
Motion to adopt the attached rules of procedures as the rules to be followed for town council meetings effective March 20, 2022.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And actually, for those that are up here, and I guess a couple people in the audience, we're just getting some updates from Emergency Services, Department of Emergency Services, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning with a possible tornado warning until 10:30.
10:30.
So just be careful when we...
In our path, in Wethersfield?
Yes, I guess it's our area heading west. No, from the west.
It's from the west.
Heading east. Yep. So just be careful when we wrap business up. And moving on to item B7. This is the refuse hauler. Well, actually, it's not even the refuse hauler. Well, it's not the hauler's proposal, but it's the MSW proposal. We had the presentation now a couple months ago from President Tom Kirk from MIRA. Kind of gave us an update on the status of the South Meadows energy trash to energy facility run by MIRA. We've had our contract with them for waste disposal. There has been a little bit back and forth right now about whether or not Mira is going to continue operation. What we had been presented was they were going to cease operation July 1 of this year, which meant that we would be in need for haulers to take our or municipal solid waste out of town and bring it somewhere. Where they're bringing it is still a question, but what we had heard was probably the most illogical thing to do is put it on a train and send it out to some other state to bury it. I'll leave that for another day, but what we were then presented with was a tipping fee scheduled by Mira that we did not know, and we had a deadline to go until I think the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, to make a decision on whether or not to stay with Mira or go with outside vendors for this. So the town manager worked with other town managers from our surrounding towns to interview put out a RFP for bids, and we received, I don't know, half a dozen, seven of them, and fully vetted by town manager, department heads, and they are before us tonight. If I missed anything.
No, I mean, Mira basically recently just sent us an amount of $111 per ton. That includes recycling, but they would only hold that for the year. So they're not giving us anything beyond that year. And I know in speaking with our finance director, Mike O'Neill, and Sally Katz, physical services director, we really feel strongly the better we can do with some kinds of fixed amounts, that would be a lot easier for all of us to budget. This is a very hard subject to understand. You listen to these interviews, they all have different interpretations of the recycling. That's the key, the recycling, and how they figure that out. You have to also remember there is no market for recycling right now, and who knows where we're going to be with recycling. So that's the hard part. So Mike's here tonight to go over the chart that he gave to all of you in your packets so that we could try to put together an apple-to-apple comparison for your best decision-making. So Mr. O'Neill will come up and explain all of that.
Yep, it's coming on. Felix, can you just grab the lights real quick if you're...
Filter check.
One day it's just gonna,
Everyone see that?
catch fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Mike O'Neill, Director of Finance. What I have before you is the analysis that was included in your agenda packet, and it's really quite simply just, it's a comparison in the end of the 4-year bids that were received. There were, as Mayor had mentioned, 6 proposals received that had pricing. There was one that had 2 options, another that had 3 options, so there were 9 scenarios to consider from 6 vendors. And what you have at the bottom here is just a, over in column H is a comparison of the 4-year cost. So we're looking at 6 of those 9 options that included pricing for 4 years. And really, the decision comes down to three options. There's two options that were submitted by CWPM. One was fixed for 4 years, that's option one. I'm sorry, one was variable for 4 years. The variable component in every case relates to recyclables. So option one, CWPM, was variable all 4 years. Option two, submitted by CWPM, had a fixed tip fee for recyclables in year one and variable in years 2 through 4. And then the third option that is in kind of in the realm of consideration here under different assumptions is Murphy Road option 3, which was a fixed tip fee for solid waste only and recyclables included. Just a little bit on the variable component. It consists of a tip fee depending on the level of contamination of the recyclables. So if they're more dirty, there's a higher cost tip fee, and then that tip fee is reduced by a factor called ACR, which is a commodity rate. It's basically the recyclable rebate. So in the case of CWPM option 2 that has the variable component, well, they both do for the out years, but option 1 for all 4 years. The recyclable component there consists of a $145 tip fee for recyclables less an ACR of $91. That's what we used. We used that because the vendor told us that was their average price that they received for recyclables for 2021. So it was just simply no other reason than that to use that. That's no guarantee of what it would be in the future. You can see when you look, they gave us some data, and you can see that it varies throughout the year. It seems to, I know nothing about the market or anything, but it seemed to kind of trend up in the summertime and then down. I don't know if that's a seasonality or market factors or what have you. But anyway, so what we did for these three options, let's look at CWPM, both of those options, and then this Murphy Road option. And I'm going to show you when you change the assumption, or I guess I'll show you how far you have to change the assumption to force Murphy Road option 3 kind of into consideration. So if you take that, as I said, $91 was the average recyclable rebate last year. If you drop that down to $53, then you can see, and you look out here in the 4-year cost, and the colors is the green are the better ones, and the amber to reds are the less favorable ones. But you can see anyways that when you force that recyclable rebate level down to $53, you have to go to that level to get option 3 Murphy Road to be comparable to the CWPM option. So this was all discussed and analyzed among the 3 towns, and as Bonnie said, the recommendation, consensus among the 3 towns was for CWPM option 2, which does get that 1 year of fixed costs for both solid waste and recyclables.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike or Mr. Deputy Mayor? So you're hearing first.
Mike, the ACR values, you had the 9122 and the 53. Wasn't that a range they gave you initially? The vendors?
No, there was one. Murphy Road was using 53, but they were using a different. I told you in my example, and it was an example given by CWPM. The tip fee was $145 less than 91. Murphy Road was not using 145. They're using a value much lower. So again, it complicates everything, but what I thought made the most sense was to take the most competitive bid and use that framework to sort of analyze everything. So to answer your question, the ACR was lower for Murphy Road, but the tip fee was
Yeah, it
lower also.
It was distorted, it wasn't?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to get no one could really tell us,
Straight
you
answer.
know, it's not like a stock price that you look up and every day or something close to that, you know, for a region or something like that. It's just ACR, and they tell you what it was.
Yeah,
you
each
know.
company kind of had their own definition. That was the problem with all this.
So as
Very
a,
complicated.
as a finance guy that likes solid numbers, you're still not looking at Murphy Road option 3, which is fixed for the full 4 years, even though it would be, what, $60,000 more? Is that right?
Well, it would be, you know, again, I put it back to a $91 on the screen.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit more. It's $300,000 more if we were to use that average ACR from last year, from 2021, according to CWPM.
Okay.
So, again, I know nothing about this market or this business.
Yeah, no.
I just know, I try to apply analytical skills to the, you know, the disparate information that we're given.
Yeah.
So I look at it and I say, I've got someone telling us that it was 91. You know, it's the person that has the most competitive bid. So again, we're just using that framework. We're not, you know, we could change, lower the tip fee, lower the ACR, and try everything. But I say to myself, how far do I have to get that variable? How far do I have to bend that variable to try to get the next best vendor into play?
Right.
And it's, you know, I mean, maybe, I don't know if 53 is impossible or if it's likely or anything, you know.
Yeah, like the conversations you hear typically is that there's no there's no place to dispose of recyclables. But it's not truly zero. It's a poor market because they're getting $53 a ton, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a poor market, not zero. So I think everybody has to realize that. Could it go to zero? Sure, and like any stock. Could go. I was kind of surprised that you would, you know, being a budget guy like planning, that you wouldn't take a real hard look at, you know, solid number, doesn't change, but
Well, I am a
you've
finance.
explained it.
I am a finance guy. There's a
Yeah,
$300,000 savings, right, in that example, right? No, I'm 100%, you know, the known is way better than the unknown. But here the risk is that the price drops. And again, I mean, if it drops to half of what it was last year, then, you know, then the other proposal comes into play, you know, and is about equal to what CWPM would be at that level.
If we went with the fixed option 3, Murphy Road option 3 fixed, and made a conscious effort to get yard waste out of our stream, then we could save some money.
Yes.
Because they're not charging you for any recyclables, so you're...
3? You're looking at 3 on this?
Yeah.
Option 3?
Yeah, the fixed one. But either way, you know, that's like a side thing for me. I'm hung up on yard waste, but.
Councilman Pentelo?
Yeah, if I could just make a quick comment, just being on that task force, I've had to learn more about the recyclable and trash business than I cared to learn about. But there's a couple things that in what I have learned about it is that I think the number was something staggering. It was like 75% of all the recyclables on the East Coast are sent to China.
Yeah.
So, huh?
I think they were, right?
Yeah, no, well, it's still like an ongoing thing. And in 2017, when we were having the dispute with China, they just shut it down. then all the recycling fell on the cost of basically the cities and the municipalities to foot the bill to figure out where to put these things. So for me, just with that number and everything that's happening in the world, I mean, I'm more comfortable going with a fixed option, and that's just because it's like, well, for budgeting sake, now you know exactly for 4 years, you know, it's a pretty substantial part of our budget. And to be quite honest, I mean, anything that's variable right now just sort of scares me, because it's like you can't really account for it. So, I mean, for me, the fixed option just makes the most sense. When you're that dependent on another country, you know, tensions are so high. I mean, they're basically saying, give us the MSW bid and we'll do the recycling for free. We know what we're paying. So to me, it's just the safer option. By the way, just by opting out of Mirror, we're already saving money. So let's not get too greedy here.
Councilman Hill?
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it's probably a better question for Bonnie is, this was a joint RFP with Rocky Hill and Newington. Is all this predicated upon all 3 towns must select the exact same vendor?
No. No.
So we could kind of go on our own and
Yes.
be honored?
We all agreed that we would do separate contracts. It would
Gotcha.
make it so much easier. I mean, because if there's an issue, I don't want to have to get 2 other towns
Right.
involved in it.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I had a question for Bonnie as well. We currently contract with Paynes for our hauler, and we're locked into a contract with them to haul. And I know you had done research. There is no additional cost right now for either Murphy Road, which is within a stone's throw of the Mira facility, and then there would be no additional cost to CWPM's Berlin facility.
Right, I talked to the owner, Mike Payne, and he did research, he had some questions, I answered them for him, and he's good. He said, no additional costs, I have that in writing.
That was kind of before cost of fuel went up and,
Well, this was, he just went on vacation, so that was Thursday.
oh, okay.
Fuel just jumped last night.
True, and probably today.
It could have been.
Since we've been here.
He could have, yeah, I was going to say, 5 o'clock this afternoon, he could have gone on vacation.
I don't think, Michael, I don't know if you'll know more than I don't think his current contract is based on gas prices.
Yeah, I thought there was a territory
I don't know.
within it.
No, a
Oh,
territory,
yeah.
but I'm saying if gas goes to $10 a gallon, that isn't our issue. He could
Oh.
maybe make it up later.
Right, and then that's what I'm
But
concerned
no,
with.
he had said, no, the distance, the time, because he wanted to know hours of operation, he wanted to know holidays. He came back to me and he said, we're good.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other comments on this? There was an existing motion, but I don't know where the consensus is with everybody. If it, to me, I kind of agree that a fixed is better than a variable. And a 4-year fix for Murphy Road's option 3. Now, that's at $91, but Mike, if you bring up the $53, that's what they were last year.
70,000 a year times 4 years, right? That's where I was missing it, right?
Say again?
It's 67,000 a year difference. And the worst,
Oh, right. You're
And-
comparing option 2
and then you look
at
at 4
91
years, I
versus
was-
option 2
yeah.
at $53,
Yeah.
correct?
So I was just looking at the 1 year, but it's a 4-year agreement, so.
Right.
$300,000.
Over the life of the 4 years.
Right.
Based on
With-
those numbers.
With
Projected. Yeah, those projected numbers.
Projected,
Yeah.
based on the projected worst-case scenario, obviously zero's worse, but.
Zero's the worst case.
That, the lower recyclable rebate.
But again, who's going to focus on that? Like, is Bonnie going to be sitting there with CWPM?
We're going to call
Oh, sorry.
Or her designee.
Yeah,
No, I mean-
our new town manager, is it going to be
It's-
Sally Katz?
It's the honor system of a trash company.
Oh, okay, so with that, I would definitely like to make a motion to opt out of the mirror contract and select Murphy Road Recycling, option 3 as the town's refuse hauling vendor starting July 1st, 2022. Again, utilizing their option 3 pricing as part of their proposal.
Second.
Yeah, for sure. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Councilman Forrest?
I'm listening and I'm agreeing with a lot of what you guys are talking about. It makes a lot of sense. I'm interested though, especially what the deputy mayor said is we could go down this route and the way to save the money is to get stuff out of the stream, right? Because this is all just weight based. So assuming we're not going with transfer station bottom, which I appreciate was all in red, like you had to pick the colors. Don't pick this one. Is there, and this might go to Tom, it might go to Pat because he's a little bit more, or Bonnie. Is there a way to have something where, like where we have all the organic goods that can go and just become mulch and like get that giant thing out of the stream if it's on a bi-weekly basis or something? And I understand like conceptually, like, oh my God, it's not like a $5,000 ask, right? That's a big ask. But could we start down that path where we could think about getting something like that out if we haven't already? And I mean, if we decide that if there's a study that talks like that's like 5 or 10 or 20% of the stream, like that could be $1 million off here. So even if the program costs to do it, we do that, with like the leaves. Like I throw like brush and all kinds of stuff in the leaf pile that just picks up and they grinds it up and it's great. So I didn't know if there was, right now, of course, the decision's 3, but if on the heels of that, do we pick up the sort of Tom's suggestion and really start to try to pull something large out of the stream, which we can handle more locally? And so I just, I'll ask the deputy mayor and the mayor, and to the extent, Mr. Penclow, because they'll have experience in this now, if something like that might be feasible, maybe like a feasibility discussion, just to see if that's doable. So I'm okay with 3, and I would like us to see if we could tackle that second part that the deputy mayor talked about.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just want everybody to understand that you could pull yard waste or food scraps or whatever out of either option. You're still gonna save money.
Yeah.
So, it's
I
like,
still like the
it's like a
fixed-
separate issue, really, but.
Yes, I still like the fixed option for the reasons you guys already talked about. But
In my mind, I'm thinking about, and I've done it myself, right? So you have one piece of log or something. If there was a third barrel there,
yeah,
I'd throw it in the yard waste barrel instead of 5 pounds or whatever. But,
Adds up.
14,000 households do that.
Right.
Could significantly save us some money. I'm not.
You want me to mention this recycling coordinator?
Either one of us.
No, do it. Real quick.
Yeah.
To Councilman Forrest's point, when Bonnie first started, I presented something to her, and if memory serves me correctly, I think it was this most recent legislative session, what's commonly referred to as the bottle bill, increasing from 5 cents to 10 cents. They also increased, or not even increased, they implemented a tax on what are called 50 milliliter nip bottles. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I mentioned it to Bonnie. She had no idea what I was talking about, nip bottles. What are those, and what are you talking about? So There is I think it's 5 cents for those, and the money is sheeted to the state and then given back to the municipality for the amount of bottles that they sell. I think we were somewhere around $26,000.
We don't even get the money, I think, until this month or April.
Right. So I think it's 26 to 29,000, somewhere around there. So one or two other municipalities are looking at using that revenue stream to hire a part-time recycling coordinator to actually help with those ideas of yard waste, organics, food scraps, working with boards of ed to get kids to either recycle more or to put the food scraps in another barrel to get it out of the tipping fee for the MSW. So looking at that, that's something I would like to explore further once we figure out how much money we're given this go around, and possibly hire a part-time recycling coordinator to come up with an idea of how best to get the most out of our transfer, or our hauling and our transfer station, and lower the tipping fees for residents. Bonnie?
Yeah, if I can, I just want to add on, though, if you, and I'm not saying I don't agree, but that is a huge, huge education piece for the public. You're going to have to sit with Mike Payne, you're going to have to come up with how you're going to devise the program. You're going to have charges for the barrels, you're going to renegotiate, so you're not looking at it next year. You're looking at it years down the line, you know, to do that.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, we did have a conversation with Payne's about this, and they did propose a trial of a small portion of town, so.
Did it ever happen?
No, it didn't happen, but we were looking at a test case, and I believe the story that we got from Mike Payne was that, from what he knows about the town, it's not like it's one cluster of town, it's sporadic all over. They find yard clippings, grass clippings all over town, and, you know, you'll go on refuse day, you'll go down the street and you see branches sticking out of some people's barrels, and, you know, Christmas time, you see Christmas trees in the barrels, and, you know, people get creative, but, you know. I did have one question about the contract. Is there a opt-out clause if for some reason we found a much better alternative?
We don't even have a contract yet. We haven't devised one. We haven't seen a sample, so we got to negotiate all that too with these guys. And we only have really till June 30th to do all that, so.
It's not like, it's not likely, but, you know, if some location, you know, closer than Ohio or wherever this stuff's going, were to put a trash to energy facility up or something, and we, you know, could get it done at a cheaper price, it'd be nice to be able to opt out in year 3 or 4.
I can certainly bring it up.
Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is for Murphy Road, option 3, fixed 4 years. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Oh, yes, somebody did second it. You two did it down there. Okay, motion carries. Nobody said aye, correct? Or nobody said nay?
Unanimous.
Unanimous? Okay, thank you.
And the motion was, if I can just clarify, to opt out of mirror, because you guys have to vote on that.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
I said opt out of mirror.
Thank you.
That was part of it. Opt out of Mira and utilize
Thanks,
option 3.
Michael. Safe drive home.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This stays tabled. I think I saw the emails back and forth.
Yep.
They're working on that. Sue, you're up for land records grant. Give us the abridged version.
Each year, the state library offers a targeted grant, which the town clerk's office applies for. Weathersfield is eligible for a grant in the amount of $7,500, and I'd like to use some of the money to recreate some of the older volumes, which would preserve the documentation as well as make more room in the vault for every one book that is recreated. We can put 2 on that shelf. And also, I'd like to continue to use it for records management, which is very helpful throughout the town departments in guiding towards records disposal. And then lastly, I'd like to also be able to have some more of the subdivision and survey maps scanned.
Any questions for Sue on this? I think every year you get this $7,500.
Yes, I've been applying for it.
Okay. Councilman O'Connor?
I'd like to make a motion to have the town manager as a delegated person to sign, submit, and accept a grant for $7,500 for the town of Wethersfield.
Second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. You have the minutes before you. This was the special meeting. And that was for, if I'm not mistaken, executive session. And then regular meeting was later on that night. Give you guys a minute to read through. If there's any questions. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, nay.
Abstain.
For the record, abstain, I was not here.
2 abstains.
2 abstentions. You got that, Sue?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Young?
Mayor, was that for both A and B?
I said the minutes for special minutes and regular minutes for the 22nd.
Good evening again, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. As far as the Murphy Road deal goes, being fixed, I think it was a safe deal to get into. I mean, let's face it, there's trillions of dollars floating all over creation. Trillions of dollars that have absolutely nothing behind it, and which is going to cause, and we've already seen it, 7%, we're pushing 8% inflation. What do you think is going to happen to the rubbish? It's going to cost us, it's going to cost and keep going up, and we're heading into a deep recession. So, there's no time to spend money, but on the other hand, fixed is the only way to go. Look at your banks. Look what they're all saying with bank mortgages. Get fixed. Don't go variable. Pretty dangerous. Tonight, we learned a little more about these extra costs that we had some people asking for. Let's talk about the art organization. The public town building is the Little Red Schoolhouse on whatever street that is. I know where it is. They don't pay rent. They don't pay electric. They don't pay heat, whatever. Probably they don't pay insurance. They're freeloaders. And how does that happen? How does that happen where someone becomes a permanent, and that's what they are, permanent, how long have they been there? How many years? Anybody know? It wasn't mentioned, was it? I'll have to send an FOI to Bonnie and ask her to look into it. But the fact remains, how did this happen where an organization got into one of our buildings for free? Did anybody know about it? Was there a public hearing? Was there anything that supports it? We have other issues around this town where there's no support, where there's no supporting issues to support money going out the door. But I'm not going to get into that tonight because this is serious business. I understand tiny money, But tiny money here, tiny money there, tiny money all over creation, all over this town. How much of that? How much are we spending? Look at the Historic Society coming up here wanting $2,000. When in fact, I was surprised that the deputy mayor mentioned all those dollars that we've spent on it. And anybody in finance can take all those expenses that we have incurred with those two buildings, the Standish House and the Kinney Center, and figure out what the regular rent should be. And then you should go at the Historic Society and have them readjust. And don't forget, you have every 10 years you can readjust. We missed the last 10 years thanks to Bonnie Bello. She didn't opt on that. And she knew all the bad things that were going on. But now we should really use our high-powered lawyers and pressure them to either pony up what it's costing us. Let's face it, we deserve a fair return on our buildings if we have somebody in there. The people that were in the art building, or the Little Red Schoolhouse, somebody, and we should know who that somebody was. We should. I'm going to have to send an FOI to Bonnie. But we should know how that happened, because it should not have happened, right? And what do we do to those people? Think about it for a moment. No rent, no electric bill, no utility bill. They're running a business, and they have no money. There's no energy in them. Now, if you sent them down to the Celestine Highway where they're going to pay $1,500 a month or whatever month's rents it is, they would hustle and create a business and do well, okay? But we, government, spoiled them. That's what happens to these people all over this country who get handouts. They're spoiled, and they don't have the energy in them to do something with their life, and they complain. They complain that, oh, I don't have anything. I don't have anything because I haven't done anything. That's what they're complaining about. And the government is pouring money into these people, like the little schoolhouse up there, like the woman that was here before from the Historic Society. Did she make a profit? No, she doesn't have to make a profit. She's got the town council. When she needs money, she comes here. When she needs money, she gets her monthly rent from Lucky Lou to help pay her bills. She doesn't have to go out and hustle. She can pull in what'd she say about the the Chamber of Commerce? How much do they pay? How much do they pay? Did anybody nail her for that? Or do I have to send her an FOI to get the number? I mean, this is the problem with you people up here. You should be asking them questions. Hammer them. No, we don't do that. And here we sit, looking down the barrel of a recession right now. And we're heading that way. And with 7%, 8% increase in our inflation rate, we're in deep trouble, folks. We shouldn't be spending anything. You know, 2,000 here, 2,000 there, 4,000 somewhere else. How many of these people do we have living on town property, doing business on town property, and they're not paying anything? How many? That's another FOI question. But the fact is, Mayor, we're not, and I've heard in the past, we don't run like a business. What do we run like? A social organization? Huh? Look what you did to those people up on the arts people. They had no ambition to make money. Why should they? Town gave them one sweetheart deal, and we don't know who that is, do we? We should know. Okay, next. I know tonight somebody had mentioned about the Keisha farm and how they're coming up with a great plan. Do they have a better plan than I do? Huh? You need money, fella. You got to get rid of that mortgage, that bond. You've got to get some money coming in, and you got to increase the grand list, and you've got to get revenue. You got to get perpetual taxes.
Mr. Young, your
Yes,
5 minutes
you've
are up.
got to do that, and if you don't do that, you shouldn't be voted back in here. You got the opportunity, you have a golden opportunity. You got an opportunity that you can show other towns how to make money instead of losing money. Thank you very much, I'm going home.
Drive carefully, Mr. Young.
Yeah, you too.
Motion to go into executive session?
We have an executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Ayes have it.
Do you want to school?
I'll know in the morning because I go home.
Yeah. It was not close.